Shalom alochun kulochun. Welcome back to the Luki and Shemesh show. I'm Luki.
And I'm Shemesh. And today we're joined by a very special guest, Sal. During our research and discovery over these last few episodes that we've recorded, it's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
And just where our discussions have led us and the different people that have reached out and people that we've connected with over Instagram and Facebook and all sorts. And we ended up connecting with Sal.
Yeah, and what's great is because a lot of the history we've done, we've recognized other groups that have been in our region, Beth Nahrain, Mesopotamia, from ancient times, so even around, after Assyrians and Chaldeans. So, seeing some of Sal's work on social media and stuff, we reached out to him on Instagram and we're like, hey, it'd be great to have you. So Sal, thanks for joining us today, and
Absolutely.
Please introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah, guys. So my name is Salar Oda Marani. I'm Mandaean. Very interested in my culture, and I can see that you guys are as well. And our paths kind of led us to this point just because of so many overlaps and so many relations that our people have had throughout history. And I'm really excited to be here. So I'll give you guys a little greeting. So we also say in our language Shlam Elochon, but we also have it's really the same. It's same language, different dialect.
Yeah.
But we also have a different way of saying it as well. We say Azutha Nahuichon, which means Azutha comes from the word Asa, which means health.
Okay.
Nahuichon is also a different way of saying Elochon. It's just in our southern dialect rather than the northern dialect.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I was just my mind went to how Nehuicho, how does that, I guess what's the base of that word? Is there a base noun out of that word?
I think it might just be a different pronunciation of Elohon because we have both. So I think what happened is the dialects just kind of diverged.
Okay.
And then we say things one way, you guys say things a different way. But if you look into classical Aramaic, there are too many overlaps, to be honest with you. So I think as time went on and, the gap between us kind of widened due to geographical reasons, religious reasons, I think one dialect developed here and then one dialect kind of developed there, So
Very cool.
Yeah.
And
I'm really excited.
And just again, what's the translation for that? I mean, is it exactly like Shlama Lochun?
No, so Shlama actually means peace.
Yes.
So when you say peace upon you, or in Arabic, Salam Alaikum, Shlama Lochun, right? This means health upon you.
Health upon, okay.
Yeah,
Very
so
nice.
it's a different way. It means, Azutha means health and purity. So health and purity to you.
Very good.
So it's just it's a different way of saying it.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So when I see another Mandaean, if I ever
Yeah.
meet another one,
So I could say Azutha
Elochon.
Nehuiluch
Yeah, exactly.
for you.
For me.
Yeah,
Exactly.
very cool.
Azutha Nechwiluch. They say that right?
Nehuiluch.
Nechwiluch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you could
Very
also
nice.
say Azutha Illuch.
Azutha
It's
Iluch.
the
Yeah,
same
just
thing,
one
yeah.
person. That's
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Azutha is
Or-
still health even in our language.
Oh,
It's
is
the
it
same-
really?
I think so.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It all stems from the same word, which is Asha.
Joe's the Surith expert here.
The
I
expert.
wouldn't call myself an expert. Well, I don't know if you
Well, here you are.
I'm a pretty native speaker. I mean, I grew up speaking the language.
Definitely.
I read, write, and we've got a big support group of people that are in our generation that read, write, and speak, and we speak to each other. And every once in a while, I'll call Alex and say "Qadamtuh Brukhta," or he'll usually call me and say "Qadamtuh Brukhta." You know what I mean?
100%.
You guys say the same thing, "Qadamtuh Brukhta" for good morning, or
So we don't say that particularly. I understand a lot of Sudath, to be honest with you. So Sudath and Mandaic are sister dialects.
Okay.
We can kind of dive into it if you want to dive into it now, since we're kind of already on the topic.
well, there's some people I feel like they don't really know what Mandaeanism is.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if we could talk about what that is, what is your community like religiously as well, and what are the similarities, and from how do we separate even as brothers and sisters from the same cloth?
Sure, 100%. So I think it's important to first and foremost kind of give an introduction. So again, my name is Salar. I'm a part of the Mandaean community. We are a very, very small community, maybe 50 to 75,000 globally.
Oh wow!
So we're a minority even amongst the Aramaic minorities. The thing about our culture is you can't actually convert to becoming Mandaean. You have to be born into it. So I can trace my lineage back 2,000-3,000 years and it's all kind of written in these coliforms, all in our text, like of this person is related to this person, is related to this person. We all stem back from 5 or 6 major families. My mother's side of the family is Khamisiya. So we say Khamisiya, you guys would say Khamisaya.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of a different dialect.
Yeah.
My father's side of the family.
Sorry, for those who don't know what that is, Khamisiya, what is that?
It's a clan.
It's a clan, okay,
yeah. So my mother's side comes from the Khamisiya clan.
Okay.
My father's side is from the Marani Mandaean clan.
Okay.
My father's side of the family are pretty prominent in the community. So there is a big jeweler named Zahrun Amara, his brother Abbas Amara, his daughter Lemia Abbas Amara. So Zahrun Amara was the doyen, which means like master jeweler of the area in Baghdad. They all stem from the Amara region.
Okay.
He's made jewelry for Winston Churchill, King Edward, Queen Victoria.
Wow.
All the Iraqi monarchy, all of the Egyptian monarchy.
And when was this gentleman living?
So this is, I think, early 19th century.
Okay.
Yeah. And from there, I mean, it stemmed. He made jewelry for FDR. Very, very prominent family, the Moroni family. And then the daughter, which is actually my grandfather's first cousin, Lemia Abbas Amara. She's one of the most famous poets in Iraq.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so come from a pretty prominent family, very prominent in the Mandaean community, because we have different classes, right? So you have like a priestly class, and then you have like the lay class. So we have some priestly lineage, but they're more into business and politics, like my father's side.
Interesting.
And then you'll have other clans that are strictly priestly, and they can trace their lineage to ancient priests in our culture.
Wow,
so,
that's incredible.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, you can trace, like your priestly groups can trace back 2,000 years, maybe even 3,000 years. You said, sure. Really, and it's recorded, like that's what
most
I mean
of
by
this information is recorded.
It's recorded. No way.
Yeah,
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
You talk about family trees. I don't know if anybody can have. That's a really long family tree.
Well, it sounds like they kept this very close knit, connection within the culture.
Community.
Yeah, and
no one can convert into it, so it had to have been closed and very close.
It's kind of like very simple. It's pre-Judaism, and Judaism was really big on the scribing and familial connection as well.
1,000,000%.
Yeah,
it has a
might
lot
have picked it up from you guys.
Possibly, it has a lot of relations to Judaism as well. So we trace our lineage back to our mothers. So just like how Judaism, you trace your lineage back to your mother. Obviously, your father's side is the clan that you relate to, but you trace your Mandaean lineage to your mother.
Exactly.
And that's similar to Judaism. So, so there's a lot of overlaps between Christianity, Judaism, even Zoroastrianism. Once we kind of dive a little bit deeper, we can get into all of that. But
absolutely. What got you interested in your roots and your culture? Have you always been like this? Did you grow up just always connected to your culture, speaking the language, into the music?
So we actually don't have our own music, which is something that a lot of people don't know. We're not really big music people, I guess. I actually listen to Assyrian music.
Okay.
that's my easiest way to kind of connect to my roots. Yeah, exactly. Some Sonia Adisha.
I got this track coming
out. Sarah Gabriel.
Yeah, for sure. So it's my way to kind of connect to my Aramaic roots through music.
Okay.
Even though it's a little bit of a different dialect, but you guys are huge on music, so I think you guys take the lead on that one.
Yeah. The Western Syriacs are really big on the music too.
Yeah,
they're another level.
Right?
Oh yeah. They make great music.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what really made me interested in this topic was, obviously we live in the diaspora. There are not many Mandaeans, as you can tell. There's 50,000 globally, and the majority of them live either in Sweden or Australia. Australia has a huge population. Here in Metro Detroit, there's maybe 500 of us total. So there's not a huge community here. We do have our own church, our own place of worship, which is called the Mendi or Beit Manda, which literally translates.
Where's that at?
It's actually in the Warren area.
All right.
Yeah, it's a small little community center that people get together, and they have some youth groups and whatnot.
Now, pardon my unintelligence when it comes to this. Is there a body of water nearby?
There isn't.
There is not.
There is not.
How do you guys get around that?
So we would either go to like local parks to baptize, or any rivers
Yeah.
that are close by. But it's made it very difficult. It's made it very
it's cold
difficult.
here, like 5 months out of the year. It's
and
like...
the thing with Mandaeanism, there's no real orthodoxy, right? So there's no set. There is an orthodoxy for the priests, but when it comes to the lay people, there's no real system. So it made it very difficult for me to kind of learn about my own heritage.
Wow.
So I decided to kind of dive deeper into the studies and into the readings myself to just try to find out as much as I could. Obviously, I have tons and tons and tons of Chaldean-Assyrian friends just because this is where we're from. We're in the Metro Detroit area, so this is kind of all I've grown up around.
Yeah.
And then hearing you guys speak the language really it made me want to look into my own language and kind of see what the similarities were, because we are the last Iraqi Aramaic speakers left in existence.
Well, more than just Iraq. Do the Mandaeans live in other places?
So
in Mesopotamia, or was it only confined to southern Iraq?
So for the majority of us, we either live in Iran or Iraq.
Okay.
Iran, kind of on the border of Iraq,
around the Gulf kind of region.
Yeah,
right?
around that area. But for the most part, I would say predominantly Iraq.
Okay.
Southern Iraq, Chaldea, if you want to call it, Southern Babylonia.
Oh, there's a Chaldea?
I think there is. Yeah. So historically, that's where we trace our roots back to.
How'd you come to that conclusion?
That's just where we're from. We've always historically lived in that southern Chaldean, quote unquote.
And this is modern day Amara, or south of Hilla.
Yeah, so there's a little triangle of
even
where
like Meshan too, right?
Huge in there, yeah. So there's a little triangle of where the Mandaeans predominantly lived. So they lived Basra on one side, you had Nasriya on the other side, and then you had Amara as well. So
exactly.
that little triangle.
Yeah, Basra on the bottom, Amara on the top, and then Nasriya just to the left of it, probably right in between Amara and
100%.
And
all the little villages.
Very cool places, by the way. I didn't go to Amara because it was just a little out of the way, but I went to Baghdad, Hilla, Najaf, Nasriya, Diwaniyah, Afaj, Samawa, and Basra.
Beautiful.
Very cool places. Basra is really amazing.
Unique culture.
Very unique culture. Have you ever been to the marshlands? Have you been back home?
I've been back home when I was very, very young.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm planning on doing in the future. I would love to, start some sort of foundation to try to clean up the rivers over there just because it's such an important part of our culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that I'm definitely looking forward to. Unfortunately, just due to persecution, a lot of our people have had to leave our ancestral homeland and either have left to Western countries, or a lot of
them what that's like.
A lot of them actually moved to Erbil now. So there is a community that's thriving in Erbil now.
If you want to make it in Iraq, Erbil is the place to be.
That's
so
what
you're
I've
like
heard,
that's like the people like to compare it to Dubai. Dubai of Iraq, like come on, dude.
I don't know if it's Dubai of Iraq yet.
Let's not Dubai of Iraq. Maybe
it won't
it is
be.
Dubai of Iraq.
It won't be. Give us
It's not
an
like
ocean,
Dubai,
and maybe we can make that happen.
Maybe like the Orlando of Iraq, but I don't know about the
Orlando.
Dubai. But I think Erbil is a very up and coming place, and I think because minorities are a little bit more protected there than where they are in the south. It was kind of like a safe haven for us to kind of go over there and start.
Less contested area.
Much less contested.
Way less contested. It's very desolate out there.
Sure.
So nobody's really fighting over land or resources. I don't know what the oil concentrations out there, but they can't be all that much because there's nothing happening down there.
For sure. But yeah, that's where we're predominantly from, guys. Historically, that's where we trace our lineage. There are a lot of records of Mandaeans also living in the north as well.
Okay.
So there were Mandaeans in Assyria historically for a while. And that's probably why if we look at our genome, it's so similar. These are stuff that we can get a little bit deeper into. As
Alex is the genome buff around here.
I just love it. Just more recently, I've been looking into
circles
it.
Around anybody. Maybe not
just
you,
for the listeners. Let's maybe backtrack a little bit.
Sure,
we mentioned like Chaldea and Mandaean and ancient roots. So from what I've read is that Mandaeans are kind of the descendants of the ancient Chaldeans who came in from the south into those regions that you just mentioned, like Basra and Meshan and Mara. Now, how did you guys come up, or what happened where you went from Chaldean to Mandaean name? or even I know that Sabian they say in the Quran, is identical to the Mandaean.
Sure, absolutely.
Take it from the beginning.
Yeah, wasn't necessarily a self-designation that we would call ourselves with. The word Mandaean comes from the Babylonian word menditu, which means knowledge. Our whole culture is based around knowledge. Mandaean literally translates to knowledge, which translates to gnosis. We're a Gnostic group, but it wasn't necessarily a self-designation that we had in the very beginning. We would call ourselves Nasoraya for a long time, Nazarene. That's the religious title that we went by for a very long time until the word Mandaean kind of took the forefront. But before that, it's hard to see where exactly that cutoff happened, where we stopped calling ourselves quote unquote Chaldean. But it's very important to make a distinction between what is Chaldean by ethnicity and what is Chaldean by title, because the word
or religion, right?
Yeah, the word Chaldean itself comes from the word Chaldea or Chaldeotha, which means astronomer or astrologer, someone who studies the stars.
Yeah.
And as you know, in Babylon, there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
Studying the stars, studying different planets, and kind of trying to understand what is in the sky around us.
Yeah.
What is going on. So, I mean, we've had... Babylon was the first place where, astronomy was really studied.
So... And then just add on to that, me and Joe had... Our second episode, we went through a lot of liturgical... texts from the Church of the East and what they said about Chaldeans, and a lot of it was Chaldean. They're the astrologers, the soothsayers,
dream interpreters, demon worshippers, even. That's because you're getting it from the other side, right? You're getting it from another religious text, and they're trying to evangelize, and these guys won't convert. They're worshiping demons over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this was. So
maybe to pick up on that, maybe discuss some of the religious aspects that go on.
So that was a huge stigma within our culture for a very long time, that we would quote unquote worship the stars.
Yeah.
We would just.
I don't think that's true, by the way.
No,
personally, I don't. I hang around a lot of medicine people, shamans and people that are into inner work and things. I don't think you'll find anything in this universe that actually worship the stars, but instead gave great reverence to the stars. The same thing to the moon and the sun, and had a connection with it, just like the indigenous, like the people before you had outer world beings, or Jesus Christ Savior for a lot of people, or or in the Mandaean religion where it's baptism is the ritual, which is a connection to water. That's a form of indigenousness.
Absolutely.
So that was just wanted to pick up on that. I at least interject about the star worship, because that's a very outdated, and I think a little bit of an ignorant perspective.
Absolutely. And it caused a lot of damage within our community, and it's probably the reason why we stopped using the title Chaldean, just because it caused so much persecution, because people thought of us as being pagan star worshippers, right?
Yeah.
We are a strictly monotheistic faith, right? It believes in one God. A lot of overlaps with Christianity and Judaism.
Well, just know on the pagan side with persecution, when we were in Iraq, we saw some symbols. Was the original Dinger symbol of the original symbol of God? That even,
and cuneiform.
In cuneiform, predating the Akkadian times and stuff like that.
I
even
think
Sumerian times and probably like that. But even they weren't allowed to tell us that this was a pagan symbol at all, because predominantly Islamic rules and stuff like that, and they were kind of probably against the pagans. And what I've read, I think maybe even obviously against the Chaldean name for being viewed by them as pagan.
100%. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a historic context. That way we can kind of dive into the conversation. So the Mandaeans, let's go back to the Akkadian Empire, right? So the Akkadian Empire was the empire that kind of flourished at the same time as the Sumerian Empire. They kind of overtook the Sumerian Empire and became the dominant power in the region, right? After the fall of the Akkadian Empire, two city-states emerged, right? Which was Assyria in the north and then Babylon in the south. During that time, what would happen is you'd had a lot of invasions of Aramean people from the west, right? So from Syria, from the Levant, those people would constantly
Amorites,
come.
right?
Yeah.
The Amoris.
Right. So they would come and they would kind of intermix within our cities, and that's how we gained the Aramaic language, because before that we all spoke Akkadian, right?
Yeah.
So the Mandaeans spoke a late Babylonian Akkadian. You guys spoke a northern Assyrian Akkadian, right? As Aramaic became the lingua franca, two separate dialects started to emerge. Same language, but two separate dialects, right? So I would compare it to just how Americans speak American English versus how British speak British English. Same language, you can understand each other, but the pronunciation and the dialects are a little bit different, right? Yeah. So what would happen is the Assyrians went to form Syriac in the north, right? And then the Mandaeans formed an Aramaic that's very close to Jewish Babylonian Talmudic Aramaic.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we formed our own script, our own dialect, but still very Akkadian influenced, right? So we are the last two people that have so much Akkadian in our Aramaic. Mandaean actually has the most Akkadian loanwords out of any Aramaic dialect.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So just like how do you?
Your whole name comes from Akkadian.
Yeah.
Although actually that comes from Babylonian Manditu.
Yeah, Manditu. So how do you guys say teeth? This is a good conversation.
Kaka.
Yeah. So we say kakuatha, which is an Akkadian term that means weapon. And we are the only Aramaic speakers that use that terminology.
Really?
Yes. So So it actually it shows the connection to ancient.
That's how old that is, man. Before you had any weapons, you had teeth.
Yeah.
100%.
That's
so.
What about nails?
So, what happened is I feel like these groups were predominantly the same. At a certain point, right? We are an admixture ethnically. This goes back to your conversation, right? We are an admixture of these.
Not mine. It was his conversation. You just brought it up. You put it on me.
I did. Because he's really good at that. You know, I got to give credit where credit is due.
Absolutely.
You know, he does his research on
I've only done a little bit of research, to be honest with you. You've probably done a lot more.
Yeah, perhaps.
But I do have I am a patent attorney, so like the tech and science geeks me out a little bit.
Yeah. I love it. I love looking deep into this stuff.
Like as far as like Akkadian timing, Assyrian timing, Babylonian time, from my research and what I can tell is that, the earliest like written record of like Chaldeans coming into the Babylonian Beth Nahrain in the area of southern Iraq really occurred around probably like 1100 BC.
Sure.
After which, the fall of the Akkadian Empire was around 1900 BC, and then Babylon in the south was formed as a state. Syria was formed in the north, and and they kind of did their separate things. Right. Still were very connected with each other, the Babylonians and the Assyrians. And then, later the groups of Chaldean came into the south or from the west, into the Babylon region and south of Babylon around 1100. And I believe there's a tablet, the earliest tablet, that says the tribe of Chaldeans from King Sennacherib, one of their tablets from. So it's just what I've discovered. I don't know if you agree with that. Or...
I do. I definitely do agree with that. The way that I look at us, based on the genealogy, is we are the two rivers of Beth Nahrain. We are very similar. We've historically always called ourselves cousins, first cousins, right?
Sure.
But we've never really known how close we were up until modern,
DNA
until all this stuff kind of came out. And then we're comparing. There's this really cool program. It's called the Aram Project, where they're doing kind of analysis based on various Aramaic
populations. Oh, okay. I haven't looked into that.
And one of the tweets that they actually just put out was the overlap between the Assyrian and Mandaean DNA is staggering. That was the tweet. Staggering. Like how similar and how close they were. They did a genealogical study. Probably mispronounced that terribly, but they did a study,
a gene study
based on my clan, which was the Marani Mandaean clan, right? 89.2% similar to the Assyrian sample that they used.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Oh dang!
I mean, you look like a Chaldean.
Yeah. If you were walking through the door, honestly, I probably
say hi, bro.
Exactly. It's settled. That's it.
Yeah.
No DNA, no nothing, no scribe stuff. That's it. All you had to say was "ha, bro."
Have you seen that?
Bro, and it's a wrap. Yeah.
You're already one
Have
of us.
Have you seen the? There's a page, Ancestral Brewer. This guy puts out a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So
he recently put out one I think this week on Natufian.
Oh, on
Natufian, and they were saying like there's a new study analysis of how maybe even the Natufians came all the way from like Morocco area, or because these people have along the coast of the Mediterranean have a large amount of Natufian.
Sure. So if you look at his video, if you look at his video based on the Iraqi DNA that he analyzed, the reason that the Mandaeans have a slightly higher Natufian kind of DNA breakdown is because we are from Babylon, and the Natufians came into Babylon. They didn't necessarily go north to Assyria, so you wouldn't see that mixture, right? All of this is really new for Mandaeans because we've been such a closed community for so long.
Yeah, you might find more cousins than you.
Right, and for us, the idea of ethnic purity is huge.
Yeah.
Right? Like
you can't get any converts as you mentioned. So I would imagine like it's very, very tough unless you leave the society.
Right.
That's probably the only option to really.
Absolutely. So our ethnic purity is something huge for us. We always say that. We've always been Mandaean, and we've always been the original people of Iraq. There is another theory too that I also want to get into, but yeah. So now, as more DNA studies are coming out, it's kind of opening our eyes to who we are ethnically, right? Because we've so long kind of identified with our religious kind of identity, that we haven't really had a chance to dive into the cultural, ethnic aspect of who we are.
That's really interesting, and I feel the same has happened sort of with our people. There's a very, very strong connection to our faith,
right,
as Chaldean Catholics, and the DNA is starting to flesh out a lot of these questions because, I think a lot of Chaldeans are starting to ask, who are we, where do we come from? Because there's a little bit of like disconnect between how our culture, our community celebrates culture and how it preserves culture, and how it goes about connection to our religion.
Absolutely.
Well, even also like the difference, we're different than other groups like Assyrians, or different than other groups like Syriacs, when actually it's starting to really shine light on that we are really much closer than what people are.
1,000%.
And actually it's almost like identical, I'll be honest.
I think it's great because you realize that you've had brothers that you didn't know about.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. In the Syriacs and the Arameans and the Suryoyo, which is the Western, and then you got the Assyrians, and then you got the Mandaeans even.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't doubt that the Yazidis are really close to us as well.
Absolutely, the Yazidis are a little bit more of an admixture with Kurdish. So they have some
a lot more Indo-European.
Of course, they have some genealogy from us.
But not as close as the other one.
Would you say by like more like Mandaean genealogy, or just us generally?
Us general. When I say us, I say us as in general, because we are basically branches from the same family.
Yeah.
Right. Like I look at the Arameans. They call themselves Aramean, but we are also Aramean people, right? Babylonian, Assyrian, Chaldean, what do you want to call it?
I feel like the Arameans today is more of a political term.
Oh, well, you see that one video with the bishop? That kind of admits that he just started that movement because some Assyrian guy really pissed him off or something.
I saw that.
That's the problem with some of these like higher ups is, that guy is trying to force his identity down my throat without even like doing any research, and you start to get a lot of really upset people because nobody wants to be challenged on their identity. It's a very closely held.
Of course, especially if this is something that has been passed on for thousands of years, right?
Sure.
Or even hundreds of years. I mean, I know plenty of Chaldeans that if you even bring up the fact that, hey, you guys are probably closer to Assyrians than you think.
Especially coming from you.
It's an instant defense mechanism. What do you mean? We're not the same as them. They wear feathers on their head. We don't. You know what I'm saying? Like it's an automatic pushback.
It's the funniest thing when somebody brings that counter argument. They wear feathers and we don't. It's like, have you done any intelligent research at all?
Right.
This is what you come down to. They got feathers on their head and we don't.
Right.
You know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, even the people, if you look at the people of north, the people of the Tura, right? Like the Zacho area, like all these people, they're predominantly from Hakkari, right?
Right.
And then after the Seifo, what they had to do, they had to kind of migrate down into Iraq and started their own villages. So I'm pretty well versed with your guys' history as well.
Sure,
I like it. It's
just to interject something real quick.
Sure.
Tilkepe, where a lot of Chaldean families are from.
Sure.
Sitting a few minutes away from Nineveh.
Right.
Car ride away, 10, 15 minutes.
5 miles.
5 miles, you did it?
Yeah. 5 miles.
5 miles
Yeah.
from Nineveh. Nineveh is the capital of Assyria.
I walk 5 miles.
It's like that
Chicago.
doesn't really require that much critical thinking to put that together. Number one. Number two, a lot of Tilkibnai at some point came from Elkush.
Of course.
And other Tilkibnai came from Ashitha. We've got friends that are from Tilkepe. Your family can trace back a couple hundred years in Tilkepe. Before then, they came from Ashitha.
Of course.
Tiare.
So
north.
The
mountains.
It makes sense. The word Suraya for such a long time has been misinterpreted as the word for Christian. Just because most Suraya are Christian, right?
Yeah.
So they just, we're Suraya, that means Christian. But it doesn't necessarily mean Christian.
Yeah.
And if you look at Old Aramaic, so for example, you guys say Nasha, right?
Nasha for person.
For person.
Yeah.
We say Ananasha.
Ananasha.
Right.
For a person?
A person.
A person.
Mm-hmm. Or Anasha or Ananasha. Right?
Anasha, okay.
Anasha.
Anasha.
Right.
Because Anna is like not a
Ana means me. So Anasha.
Anasha.
Anasha, okay.
So what happened with classical Aramaic is a lot of these words had an A in front of them. And a lot of those letters were dropped as the language started to develop. With Aramaic, classical Aramaic, because we can trace it back to, let's say, 1st, 2nd century, you still have a lot of these old ways of saying things, right?
Sure.
So just like with the word Suraya, the word Suraya was originally Suraya, which means Assyrian.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like...
Well, it's Ashur.
Yeah.
Ashur, the land.
People of Ashur.
Aya
Right.
is in connection to wherever you're from. Was Tilkibnaya, Kushnaya, Zachonaya.
Of course.
Ashur, Aya.
Of course.
Ashur being the land, and Aya meaning one who's from the land of Ashur.
Of course.
And I was thinking about the Surith part too with the name.
Yeah.
Like have Sur and then if like the end language, like the suffix to make like the language of Sur or Ashur. So we say Surith.
Yeah.
Probably was like early Old Mary like Ashurith or something like that.
Something.
But I'm just guessing. Right
Well,
there.
so the Jews say Ashurit or Aramit.
Ashurit, yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
Ashurit or Aramit.
Kitawa Ashurit, I think is
Exactly.
what they call the writing.
Exactly. Well, okay, so my conspiracy mind goes to, Ashur was the god.
Sure.
And Ashur was the land, right? After so many hundreds or thousands of years of letting go of this Ashur land and Ashurism, which is a monotheistic religion, by the way. It's not a pagan thing.
Sure.
A lot of people go, our ancestors are pagan. No, they actually invented the first monotheistic religion.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Probably that our God is still Ashur. Nobody's got a name for it.
You never know.
You know what I'm saying?
For
Who
sure.
knows? Who knows? It's all up for debate.
Sure.
But the point I'm trying to make is when you have specific groups of people or even religions that want to get away from using the name Ashur because it is related to a god, a deity that you no longer worship or have a connection with, then you will have special interest groups like religious organizations that will want to drop the Ashur from that. So you take the S out, the A out, and you're left with Shuraya or Suraya. Well, it's not so bad, and you make it to mean Christian instead of somebody from the land Ashur. It makes a lot more sense for the person calling
and
themselves
collectively,
Suraya.
if we were all calling ourselves Suraya,
Yeah.
Let's just say from the fall of Nineveh to the Muslim conquest, Islamic conquest.
Yeah.
We're calling ourselves Suraya, we're Suraya, we're Suraya. I mean, the English translation now is there's been this attachment to Christian. You're right? But we were just calling ourselves Suraya, and then we have now Islamic conquests come in, and for the next 600 to today, the Arabs were probably calling us Christian, and so Syria just became synonymous with Christian, really because of persecution.
Yeah.
And we were calling ourselves Syria because we are Syria.
We'll get this in a recent.
And so it's really just it became two meanings. Of course, words can get meanings over time. So we have Ashur, where the people of Assyria who became Christian. The people of Assyria and the land and Nineveh plains, and even Babylon that converted to Christian was like almost all of them. Like a lot of them were converting to Christianity. So, so our communities who were still calling themselves Syria were now Christian, and that transition over hundreds of years is now this kind of connotation of it just means Christian.
Yeah,
it's not.
We came across the Chinook inscription. You remember that? And that was. Are you familiar with the Chinook inscription?
Heard of it, yeah.
So that inscription, if I remember correctly, was an inscription dated 800 BC.
Sure.
Okay, that's before the fall of Nineveh.
Okay.
And you have the Phoenicians and the Luwians came together to create an inscription about the king of Assyria at that time. I forgot who it was, but it references the Assyrians. And in the Phoenician translation, I believe they say Ashurai for the people of Assyria, but in the Luwian, they say Surai. And it's a translation, two different languages on the same inscriptions. What that means is you had other groups of people calling us, this group of people, Surai, while others were still calling us Ashurai.
Of course.
So it's possible because at some point we became a lesser empire and not no empire at all. We had other bigger empires that we were dealing with or whatever,
Rome,
calling
Greece,
us exactly.
Calling
us Surai. So and maybe just to get with the times or
Persia.
Yeah, just the same as like you have a lot of Tilkibnai that changed their name to Muslim names just to do business.
Of course, and that's something that happened within our population as well.
Oh, you said Abbas earlier.
Abbas Amara, yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
So
exactly. Abbas is a very Muslim
name. So if you look into antiquity, you would see our names being Yohanna, Ram, very
Syriac,
Old Persian, Aramaic names, right? And then as time developed, and especially after the Muslim conquest, you would start to see our names become more and more Arabized because we had to kind of take on this identity in order to be left alone. We're pacifists. So here's the main difference between the way of thinking of the modern Chaldean-Assyrian people, right, versus the Mandaean people. You guys were more of a warlike clan, right? You guys were an empire. You guys had no problem with defending yourselves, right? Like even when the Turks and the Kurds tried to kind of take over your land, you guys had no problem defending yourselves. You guys fought to the death, right? We, on the other hand, are pacifists. So we tried to fly under the radar. Our numbers are very small. We don't have an army. We don't have... it's actually not allowed for us to carry weapons.
Wow.
So the strict Mandaeans do not carry any weapons.
And that would have been the case like throughout your Mandaean history. And
no weapons. We're not a warlike people at all. So
like when they say Nebuchadnezzar was Chaldean and went and conquered.
Yes.
I guess that's an interesting dynamic, I guess.
Right. This Mandaeanism is a religion, a specific religion of this group of people. So not necessarily all of the Chaldeans of that time were Mandaean, right?
So what about the other ones? Has your research connected you with other Chaldeans that are not Mandaean and that are not modern day Chaldean?
So what's very interesting is if you look at the Shia population of southern Iraq, many of them, up to 80% Mandaean DNA.
Really?
Just because
how did you know that? Did you connect with anybody online? Or
so I do so much research on genealogy, and what that shows me is a lot of these people were forcibly converted.
Oh yeah, that was true.
So
speaking of that, and I want to hear what you have to say about it. It jogged my memory to something. I'm seeing there's this awakening among Muslims in Iraq. On where they came from, because they're they're doing research on the internet. The internet is something.
They're doing DNA tests too, I'm sure too,
yeah.
or their cousins that are in America are doing their DNA.
Oh, of course, of course. But I'm talking about in Iraq.
Yeah.
They've got access to the internet. There's a lot of these groups on like Chaldean-Assyrian, exactly, Hadarat, the civilization.
They're trying to understand who they are.
They are trying to understand, and now they're like, oh my gosh, like we're right next to all
Jaburi.
These, exactly, the Jaburi clan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's all these people are having these existential crises, just like we were talking about before we started rolling.
We have an Albanian guy in the back over here who's also going through his...
Shout out to the Jaburis.
Exactly.
That's right,
yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's really cool, though, because a lot of these Muslims, and I sat in taxis from all the way from the north to the south, and I had really great conversations with them, telling them where I'm from and all this stuff, and they, not in any pompous way, but they're kissing my feet. Oh, you're Ashuri, you're Kildani, you're, like this is where you're from, this is your home, come back here. We want you back here. And
I
a
feel
lot
like
of
things are starting to change, to be honest.
They're really starting to change. And I talked to
so.
a really old gentleman was the one that really blew my mind, because he's like, things are changing, but there was a lot more love in the past, with our brothers and sisters of the Christian faith or Jewish faith, and we really want to see that come back. And we feel that there, for a while that there was really non-existence, because you had these wars pinning us up against each other, when it's not a religious war. This is a war over power and resources.
It's power, resources,
I think
and
if we ever want to have a foot in our own homeland, we're going to need to find out how to cooperate and collaborate with everybody else.
Tolerate too.
Yeah, man, just be respectful, because our parents did it to a certain degree, and our grandparents did it. My grandpa had Muslim neighbors, he had Jewish neighbors.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I think we need to think that way.
Teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful person. I'll be honest with you. So
yeah,
sure, 100%. It's just important for people to respect each other's identities, because it's very easy to fall into the trap of, like, I'll give you guys a perfect example. There was a video.
I like to use the word tolerate.
Sure.
Because you can show respect or whatever, but tolerating is recognizing that you have a difference.
Sure.
And you're okay with them going and doing their own thing while I do my own thing. And I think that's a problem that we have here in America, is that we don't tolerate. There's a lot of groups that don't tolerate other people's different sides and stuff like that.
What if we turned it all the way up and said celebrate? You know what I mean? If I was able to celebrate who you are.
Well, that's what we're trying to do here, right?
Celebrate who I am. We can celebrate each other. And if we celebrate it, we can learn from each other.
That comes with a mutual understanding and a kind of an educational process. Of kind of understanding who we are and who we are in relation to other groups, kind of like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
But going back to what we said, there was a video that came out 3 weeks ago. It was of a Mandaean. It was a Mandaean home, and a group of Shia Muslims came and attacked this family with swords and said all types of racial and religious slurs at us, and things like this happened in the past. And I feel like it would come in waves, right? Because my family had plenty of Muslim friends in Baghdad, right? But at the same time, I know plenty of people, distant relatives, who have died because they didn't want to convert to Islam, right? So I feel like in order for us to really reestablish a foot in the homeland, there's going to need to be a celebration of indigenous people, right?
I think that's starting to happen, and I think the more we promote this on social media, we do our part. The Mandaean community comes together, and we're able to be good allies and brothers to the Mandaeans and
celebrate our cultures.
Exactly, and
the collection of cultures.
And the Chaldeans and Assyrians come together, and the Syriacs, and we can see each other as really cut from the same cloth, and maybe 100%. Just go to different churches and have different dialects.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And really as a celebration of our indigenous roots, because really nobody can trace themselves to the start of civilization, at least in recorded history as we stand right now today.
Sure.
But us.
Yeah, there's nobody out there.
Nobody. Yeah. And that's a really, really rare thing, especially as it pertains to where we come from and the fact that most of our families didn't migrate pretty much. We've been from that land since the beginning of time. And this is the absolute start to our newest journey outside of our homeland, and hopefully our journey on the way back.
Absolutely. So I think it's really important, just because, like you said, many groups cannot trace their lineage back to the Akkadian Empire. I mean, majority of our words are Akkadian. Even if you look at certain lead scrolls there are certain amulets and lead scrolls in lead and silver and gold that they found all around various regions of southern Babylonia, written in Mandaic, tracing back from the 2nd, 3rd century. Wow. So we've been historically in this region since the beginning of Aramaic has been spoken in that region, and much further, as we can say, because of our Akkadian loanwords. So
absolutely, it shows continuity.
Region. Yeah, it's continuity.
You don't preserve a language that's not yours. That's the thing that I keep telling people. Is you speak a language, you call yourself a Suraya, you should probably figure out what that means.
Right.
But you don't preserve and call yourself something, even in your own language, unless it's true.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
And during the Muslim conquest, they wanted us to get rid of our language, and we still to this day have kept it. I know of groups that, like Muslawis, they lost it because they were actually forced to, from what I hear, and it's hard to find these type of records because the persecutors don't keep these type of records.
It's there though, not records, but oral history. But oral
history is that the Muslawis, were like they are like really the descendants of the Ninevites. Because they are from Nineveh, literally, but they were forced to stop speaking Surith in public, and I think even the oral histories that they would cut the tongue out and stuff if they heard that, and so they lost. And they would lose just like a lot of our people who don't speak the language today here in America, like 1 generation, 2 generations, that's possible. They just lost the language because of that situation.
That's exactly.
And I like to say, our cultures, the indigenous cultures, are really intertwined.
Sure.
And as we've kind of fight with each other and think we're different and stuff like that, and untwine those connections, we're gonna lose all of it.
1,000,000%.
So we need to work. Even and this is great because there aren't really many Mandaeans, and I was talking to some.
Yeah, you're one in 75,000, man. That's about as rare as they come.
No, I was talking to some friends of mine who know a lot of history and stuff like that, and I said, hey, they talk about the podcast and the show, and they're like, hey, what do you got coming up for your next episode? I was like, well, we're bringing on a Mandaean, and they're like, what is that? So even I think a lot of are not familiar with Mandaeans. Sure. I think I only learned about it just a few years ago, to be honest.
Right, absolutely.
And I would love for you to touch on the religious aspects of Mandaeanism, because we've talked about water and stuff like that and purity.
So just kind of piggybacking off the conversation you just had about the Muslawis, I would say Mandaeans are in that exact same category. So we are an Aramaic people cut from the same cloth as the Assyrians, Chaldeans, Arameans, Muslawis, right? From the same cloth. Obviously, like we said, a little variation due to geography. But we were also forced to stop speaking our language. The last person to fluently speak our language in my family was my great-grandfather. He had a date farm on the Tigris, and it was called Chaldean-Assyrian. That was the village that they were from.
That's a nice spot, by the way. Date farm on the Tigris.
It's beautiful.
I passed a few of those,
right. And unfortunately, what happened?
California dates were imported from Iraq.
I'm sure they were.
That's what. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut out. The dates I was big.
No, it's a captivating view. Just really.
If somebody mentions dates, that's
man,
us, right?
Absolutely.
Dates and figs, Tina is like
exactly,
that's where it's at. But he had a date farm on the Tigris, and Chaldean-Assyrian, where my grandmother grew up, it's near Basra, was predominantly a Mandaean region, right? As more Islamic groups started to come and kind of buy land, take over land, whatever, in our areas, we started having, Muslim neighbors.
Yeah.
And that caused a lot of tension because historically, Mandaeans, going back to a conversation that you brought up earlier about Subba or Sabians, right? Sabians. We were looked at in the Quran as people of the book. And we were tolerated by being people of the book. Right?
Same thing with us, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that wasn't necessarily the case all the time. So yes, we were tolerated, but it was really up to the local authorities whether they wanted to tolerate it or not.
Tolerated with a bunch of Jim Crow laws.
100%. Yeah. So they forced us to stop speaking our language in order to kind of function in everyday normal society. The last person to speak our version of Aramaic, our dialect, was my great-grandfather, and he was terrified to teach my grandmother and the rest of his children, because if they were to speak Aramaic around the Arbaya, right, they would kill them. It was a huge custom for them to ride on horseback and kidnap Mandaean women. and forcibly convert them and make them into their brides or slaves or whatever it was. My grandmother was almost kidnapped by a Islamic person, right?
We've had that. Our families, of course, our ancestors had a lot of that too.
Absolutely.
North, of course,
a lot.
Forced marriage kidnappings. Unfortunately,
it's
by Kurdish people, I think mainly. But
and what happened with us is we were kind of, like I said, forced to stop speaking our language, and it really disconnected us from our culture and our ancient heritage. We used to call our language the Chaldean language, so we might be able to dive into that a little bit.
Sure.
In 1604...
Would you call our language Chaldean language?
I would call your language Sudeth.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily...
What does Sudeth mean?
Sudeth?
In English?
I mean, it translates to Syriac, right? But it's not classical Syriac.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what I would call it.
You would call it Syriac.
Syriac, yeah.
Yeah.
But classical Syriac is a little bit different than...
No, it's classical, for sure. I mean, it's dialectic versus.
Because some people just say we speak Chaldean too. So I think it's incorrect. I believe.
No, it's absolutely incorrect. I mean, all the authorities will tell you that calling Sudeth Chaldean is nothing but an attempt to brand the language on.
But if we were talking about your language, we'd probably say it's Lishana Caldana. Lishana Caldaya.
Yeah, 100%. So we used to call our language the Chaldean language.
What do you call it now? What do you call the language you speak?
Mandaean.
Mandaean.
Yeah, which is just...
Versus Mandaean, you call it Mandaean.
Mandaya is just a different pronunciation.
Okay, I mean, I want to know what's right.
And what was it? And how would you say Chaldean in your languages?
Chaldean.
Same
thing. So before we stop referring ourselves to being Chaldean people, right? We would call our language Lishanat Chaldean, right? There was an Italian linguist that was given permission by the Pope to kind of visit Iraq in I believe the year 1604, 1605, and he did a deep study on the Mandaeans, and he kind of mingled with them for a number of years and kind of reported his findings back to the Pope. And he said, I found these ancient Mesopotamian Christians. That's what he called us. A lot of the times they would call us, St. John Christians or whatnot, because we have so many overlaps with the Christianity religion. And he said that they would call their language the Chaldean language. He goes, but I think it's just a variation of Syriac. That's what his findings were. So
but this guy's an outsider. He's not an insider. He doesn't, he's probably just going to pick up on a few words here and there and say, oh, these sound similar.
Right, for sure. And he's like, oh, this is a dialect of Syriac. And at the time...
And he probably only had access to one or two other books that even mentioned these terms in 1600.
Maybe he was, second book.
Yeah. So we would reference our language to Lishanat Chaldean, right? Which was just basically a dialect of Babylonian Aramaic, right? As everyone else in the region stopped speaking that language, and as we stopped referring to ourselves as Chaldean, we started obviously referencing ourselves to our religious name, which is Mandaean. So now we call the language the Mandaic language. But that is just a reference to the religion. It has nothing to do with the ethnicity.
I see. Sort of like what Chaldeans are doing with Sudeth.
Chaldean, exactly.
They're just calling it Chaldean because we're heavily intertwined with the church and
1,000,000%,
the religion.
1,000,000%.
Yeah, very interesting.
So that's kind of what happened with our language.
Where was the move to start calling you guys Mandaean versus Chaldean, or calling the language Mandaic versus
it's really hard to kind of pinpoint that. Again, the word Mandaean wasn't necessarily a designation that we used for ourselves for a long time.
Was it an exonym?
I believe so.
Like did other groups call you Chaldean?
Possibly.
Or Mandaean rather.
Possibly. We would refer to ourselves as Nasoraya.
Okay.
So this is
was your self-designation.
Yes, this is.
When did you go from Chaldean to Nasoraya?
I believe when the Nazarenes came to Babylon.
And that was when?
During the fall of the Second Temple. So let's say 70 to 180.
I see.
This is a very, very important piece of information that we also need to discuss, because the Mandaeans aren't necessarily strictly a Chaldean people, right? I go by the philosophy of one of our Genzebras, which is a high priest. His name is Bricha Nasoraya.
Okay.
We come from an admixture of two groups, right? So we are the indigenous, Chaldean, Aramean, Babylonian, whatever you want to call it, people of southern Babylonia, right? But during the fall of the Second Temple, there was a group from the Transjordan called the Nesoraya, all right? Or the Nesorai in our dialect, how we say it. They're Nazareans who were predominantly an Aramean ethnic group. They were in the mountainous region of the Gilead, which is on the Jordan River, bordering Aram, Damascus, right? So they were from the group called the Essenes. Are you familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Of course.
Yeah, so they are from the group called the Essenes, who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls and whatnot.
Wow.
And during the fall of the Second Temple, they migrated from the Transjordan under the protection of King Artabanos, which translates to Ardawan in Persian.
Yeah. It's a very popular Mandaean name, isn't it?
Extremely popular Mandaean name because that king protected the Nazareans traveling. First, they traveled from that region in, let's say, the Transjordan. We have a scroll called the Haran Goetha, which kind of documents this whole transition from that area into southern Babylonia. The Nazareans first settled in Haran, Assyria, for a very long time, maybe a century or two. Most likely.
I also saw that there are a lot of after the fall of the temple and everything.
Sure.
A lot of Jewish people all went and settled around that region, the Kachaba region, north of Zacho.
Yeah, 100%. There is another group. So the
Haran being more north,
right? It's in modern day Turkey.
Yeah.
So there were other groups that also migrated at the same time, like the Alkacites, which were another Gnostic baptismal group that wore all white, etc., right? So very similar to us. They also migrated to southern Babylonia, but first we migrated to Assyria, most likely intermingling with the early Nestorians, the early churches over there. And then we migrated to Turet Media, which is the Medes Mountains. And then from there, finally down into Babylonia, where they were most likely put into a position of power because they were high priests, and they were in the courts of the emperors. They
were consults, really, to the authority, the kings, the high priests, and things like that. They were interpreting dreams. They were, of course, fortune tellers.
The Chaldeans, yes. But the Nazareans themselves were probably put into positions of high power. If you look at the Essenes, they have a lot in common with modern day Mandaeans, right? And so when they finally traveled down into southern Babylonia and they kind of intermingled with the group, there was most likely a mixing of philosophy, a mixing of ethnicity, and that's kind of where we trace our lineage. I would like to read.
You trace your lineage to the Essenes mainly?
If you look at our genealogy, we trace our genome to ancient Mesopotamia. Right? But if you look at the religious aspect, we trace our religion to the Nesoraya.
Well, that's really interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
So we don't necessarily count them as the starters of the faith, because we trace our faith back to Adam, right? Like Adam and Eve. So if you get into the religious aspect of kind of the philosophy, we say that we are the oldest monotheistic religion. It's hard for me to kind of prove all this, so I try to stay strictly on a historical basis, right? But the Nesoraya came and they gave us a lot of their philosophy, to be honest with you. And I would like to read something for you guys. This is from one of our scrolls, translated by E.S. Drower, who was she was a British philosopher, and she wrote a lot of books on Mandaeans, and we thank her a lot because she kind of preserved a lot of our culture. And I'll get into the revival and kind of why there was such a need to kind of revive our culture. But this...
And we can post it up for the audience can see it too,
So this is kind of a reference to what we're discussing. It's a very interesting excerpt from one of the translations that she did.
While you're finding that, I just thought it was interesting that you brought up the Essenes, because I've done some research on like the early forms of Christianity, and what comes up are the Corinthians, and the Essenes.
Sure.
And very much into the healing arts and into the gnosis, the Gnostic part of almost the mysticism.
Sure.
Of
that's kind of right up our
alley, exactly, which is early Judaism, even early Christianity, because there's a lot of overlap from Judaism cross-fading into this new Christianity.
For sure.
The earliest Christians were really a new sect of Judaism.
So if you look at the Alkacites, which are virtually identical to the Nazarenes, right, in form of religious practice, dress, region where they came from. The only difference is they were Christians predominantly, right? But they were exactly the same.
Yeah.
Even in our community, there is a consensus that a lot of the Nasoraya kind of left the Mandaean faith and went on to help form the early Nestorian faith. So, I mean, there was a lot of mixing and discussion of philosophy during that time, right?
Yeah.
So, people from our group would go and become Christians, people from the Christianic faith, right? So, there is someone called, I think his name is Bar Desan. He's an Assyrian.
Bar Desan, we referenced him in our last episode.
Yeah, so Bar Desan is an Assyrian, but in our tradition, we venerate him as a Mandaean, right?
Oh, really?
So, yeah, we do. So
you want to fight over Bar Desan, bro?
So he's a Gnostic, right? So I think there's a lot of overlap because the regions are not that far apart. So I'm sure there's a lot of people from Babylonia going to Assyria, from Assyria going into Babylonia, and there's a lot of mixing of philosophies, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, this is
especially from the higher ups. They would have been those would have been the people that exposed it, and they would have accepted it or declined it or whatever.
Absolutely. This is the
it's
excerpt
really
that
interesting.
I want to read for you guys. This is from one of our scrolls, translated by Esdras. It says, "From the home of the great community therein, I became a healer for souls. I became the healer for souls who heals but takes no fee. I set forth and reached the gates of Babylon. Of the children of Babylon, there were some who opened their doors when seeing me. There were some who shut their doors. And the ones who opened their doors, to the ones who shut their doors, the hatred of life, and they loved death, and they were held back. To the ones that opened their doors, loved life and hated death. They hated death and loved life. They will rise up in purity and will behold the place of light." And then there is a little excerpt in the actual book. It says, "It seems that the Nazarenes flourished in Babylonia under the Parthian kingdom and dwelt, like the other Baptist Gnostic sects, like the Alkacites, in central and southern Babylonia, in towns such as Kutha, Borsippa, Nippur, Purat Mesan. As soon as they settled down, they got acquainted with the magic and astrology of the Chaldeans and the astrology of the Babylonians." So this was most likely this historic mixing of this group with the ancient indigenous Chaldean Babylonians, with these Nahrain Essenes that kind of migrated during the 1st century and kind of started what we call modern Mandaeanism.
Yeah, now, and I just want to make reference real quick to the names that you dropped in there, Borsippa, Nippur. Those are all in Babylon, and they happen to be archaeological sites now.
Sure.
People can go and visit. Part of Babylonian temples to various gods and so on, or parts of even civilization. Actually, Nippur is the site of the god Enki, who is the ruler of the cosmos.
Sure.
And I went to that temple.
Oh wow!
Yeah, very, very cool spot.
And this is where you would find a lot of ancient Mandaic kind of amulets, the prayer bowls. We have a lot of prayer bowls that
there are prayer bowls. I think I was telling Alex they're smashed on the ground still because there's no recycling. You use a bowl, that's it. You just make another bowl. It's all clay.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't think they believed in reusing the same bowls after our offering was made.
Sure.
There's no recycling. Like, I'm gonna give it to you, this God today, and tomorrow this God tomorrow. Sure. No, it's done. We smash it. We make a new one for this God.
Right. Absolutely. So
I think the Greeks got that from us.
Oh, probably. The Opa?
Yeah.
Smashing up the plates.
Yeah.
But that's where you would find a lot of our archaeological discoveries in our script, right?
Yeah.
So you'd find them in these southern and central Babylonian areas, and that's why we can definitely say that we've been in this region for such a long time.
Right.
It's been such a huge debate amongst the Mandaean community for such a long time.
Within yourselves.
Within ourselves, are we originally from the Transjordan Israel area, or are we indigenous Mesopotamians?
Yeah.
Right. And it's been a huge debate that's been ongoing for such a long time. And now I feel like I said, with modern,
DNA, you can see how people migrated.
Right. So we are ethnically indigenous Mesopotamians.
Yeah.
The admixture of the Arameans that came from the Transjordan didn't really. It's kind of like a drop in the bucket for, a drop in the ocean for our genealogy, because at that time, by the time that the Arameans, you want to call them Israelites, Arameans, they're most likely Arameans because they're on the border of Aram, Damascus, right? So ethnically, they're most likely Arameans. By the time they came, the Aramean genealogy was already very, very mixed into us at that point.
Yeah.
Right? With the Assyrians and
the
Chaldeans.
At what period, just so, if you know?
What period did they come?
Yeah, what did they mix into, and there's not really like an Aramean identity that much anymore these days?
It's hard to say, but I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, even before...
Long time ago.
Very
it had to have been
ago.
like
The Dead Sea Scrolls were like, what?
1000 to 2000 BC.
200 BC.
The Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah, it's when they found... I think it was when they dated them. Back to like 200 BC.
200 BC.
Which there was a confirmation of a lot of the Mosaic texts that had been written within like 1000
100%.
to 700
So
BC.
when the Nazarenes...
I'll defer to you because I'm unfair.
Yeah.
When the Nazarenes actually traveled over, that was during the 1st century, right?
Okay.
AD. AD, right. But like we said, the Arameans have been coming to Mesopotamia for much longer than that. So it's not really... it didn't really necessarily make a huge impact on our ethnicity when the Nazarenes came and kind of intermixed with the indigenous people. On the philosophy, yes. Yeah. But not on the actual ethnicity.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Now, like, what is it? Okay, so what is that philosophy, the Nazarene, or kind of what are the religious practices of that? And like with those Nazarenes, did they have that kind of closed off, no one can convert mentality, or was that something that was already in there?
It's hard to say. It might have been because
I'm just trying to think, like, because as they traveled, from Haran and all the way down to around, how, if they were very tight knit. I mean, I'm just trying to think about how that assimilation may have happened.
Sure.
And it probably, if there was any, or if it was just, this Nazarene decided to become Christian, or and leave the faith.
Another huge debate within our community. A lot of our people say that the religion was closed off by John the Baptist. Right.
Okay.
But again, a lot of people in our community also say that we used to accept converts up until the Islamic invasion, right? Until the conquest. So that's a huge debate within our community, and that's a very touchy subject,
Is that something you guys are willing, you might not be privy to this, but is that something that your community is willing to, is that a negotiable thing just in order to keep continuing Mandaeism, or?
It's something that's been brought up quite a bit. But there's a lot of pushback on it, to be honest with you, just because they'd like to keep their ethnic identity. Right?
Yeah, purists.
Purists, yeah. Just like, there's a lot of Assyrians that if their daughter is, let's say, from a certain village and she wants to marry somebody from another village, it's a huge thing. I mean,
to some degree, these days they're just happy.
I've met some
it's big.
Only
I'm joking.
It's huge, right? It's huge.
Only Tilkibnai like that. Only Tilkibnai like that. But nowadays, they're happy that you marry any Suraya and not a Nechraya.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a Nechraya.
Eight generations.
You can marry any Suraya.
If they go back 8 generations, they'll find Al Koshi.
So that's something that's
3 generations back, they all came from El Kosh anyways.
So that's something that's huge and something that needs to be discussed internally with the Mandaeans, because a lot of our people are marrying Nechraya now. Right?
Sure.
And what happens,
even Mandaean as well?
Yeah, and what happens, unfortunately, is when you marry outside of the religion, you are no longer considered Mandaean.
Sure.
Right?
For sure. You got a closed off thing. It's almost like royalty. You marry out of royalty, or you let go of your royalty,
The thing is Mandaean is a religious identification, right? So for a lot of these people, a lot of these young Mandaeans growing up in the diaspora, right? The only connection that we have to our ancient roots is to this specific religion, right? Because our culture has been Arabized for the most part, right? We no longer speak our language. Our names are predominantly Iraqi, Arabic, right? We don't have a sense of music. So the only thing the only thing we have to relate to is this religion. And now, if someone, like for example, me, I don't really have much choices here to marry a Mandaean in Michigan, right? There's not.
Got the internet, bro.
Right,
Mail order bride.
So what happens to these Mandaeans that decide to marry Nahrain and kind of leave the?
How many are in the United States? You said 500 here in Michigan, right?
Maybe 500 to 1,000 here.
In the United States as a whole?
In the United States as a whole, maybe 4,000. 4,000,
okay.
Yeah, in the whole United States?
Yeah. It's not many.
No, not at all. What happens with these people is they lose the only link that they have to their ancient roots.
Yeah.
So the whole reason why I started this movement, I'm in the process of starting a nonprofit, to kind of identify with a cultural aspect rather than just strictly a religious aspect, right?
Sure.
Because what happens to these Mandaeans that decide to marry outside the religion? I know a lot of like purists right now are going to hate me when they watch this. I'm going to get tons of hate and comments and whatnot.
It's okay, we'll enjoy the comments.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Well, listen, we'll just want to,
what happens to these people, right?
Yeah.
What happens to these people? Are they now Iraqi, right? But we were in Iraq before the name Iraq was created.
Yeah.
Right? Our dialect.
You've been in there longer than 100 years, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So what
91.
happens? What happens to these people? What happens to
92.
their ancient lineage? What, they just have to identify as Arab? The amount of Mandaeans that identify as Arab and have no idea that we're not Arab is staggering, right?
Really?
So yeah. It's,
how do they not differentiate? You have a completely different religion. I know the language is not different in terms of what they're speaking nowadays, because they're not speaking
Aramaic.
Yeah, they're not speaking. Yeah, mainly Arabic.
Yeah. So I would take it like this. Imagine taking a Suraya, okay, and placing him in Saudi Arabia for 2,000 years, and forcing him not to speak his language, forcing him to only practice his religion in secrecy, right? And then if they find out, they're going to kill you.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're just going to adopt the kind of culture that's around you.
Sure.
Right? The difference between us and the Suraya is you guys were protected mostly in the mountainous regions. Again, you guys were more of a warlike people that kind of wanted to defend yourselves.
Yeah.
Right? We were in the south. There was no mountainous region to protect us, and we're a very, very small population. You guys trace yourselves back to the Assyrian Empire. We trace ourselves back to a sect from the Babylonian Empire.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we are a religious sect of the Babylonian Empire. We weren't the kings and queens of Babylon and whatnot. We weren't the warlike tribes from Babylon.
Sure.
Right? So when they came in and they kind of when the Arabs came from the south and they kind of started taking over the region, we were the first to get hit.
Yeah.
Right. And
I've also heard Saddam even treated you guys very bad with like the rivers and stuff,
super
or even
badly.
like ruined some of the
ruined some of
your most cultural sites or something like that.
Of course,
flooding or damming the rivers,
and
which the rivers are a very big part of your. From what I was reading and
huge. We're
researching.
Nashat Nahra. That's what we are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're people of the river. We have to live.
Why is that? Why is that though?
Because we look at we can get into the religious aspect of it now.
Yeah, I do want to touch on the religion because we talked very much about the historical and the genealogical. But what
give
is
us like a quick
So what is the Mandaean service like?
So
and what are the
and you mentioned like Saint John, the Christian or
I was going to ask, what are the tenets of your faith?
Sure.
Main tenets, and what is a weekly service like?
So,
or if you do even have them weekly, I'm not really sure.
So we also look at Sundays. So different than the Jews who look at Saturday as the Sabbath, right? We, like the Christians, venerate Sunday as our holy day. You guys say Choshaba. We say Habshaba.
Habshaba.
Yeah, so for us, the difference in the dialects is you guys use a lot of H sound and we use a lot of H sounds.
Ha, not ha.
Yeah, ha, not ha.
Okay.
You know? So we would say Habshaba. We also say Bricha the same way that you guys say Bricha. So we would say Habshaba Bricha. Sunday is our day to kind of baptize and be with family and do the whole religious thing.
Yeah.
being in and around the rivers is huge for us. We call it the Yardena. Some people say that translates to Jordan. Other people say that translates into running water. We must baptize in running water. We cannot baptize in still water.
Like a pool.
Some do in a pool now, and this is a huge area of debate. Just because, like I said, some live in Sweden and some live in Germany, and they can't necessarily in the wintertime baptize.
Sweden gets pretty cold.
Right. So they were kind of forced to kind of adapt and find a new way to baptize.
Sure.
It's a huge debate within our community.
I mean, cold plunges are a pretty popular thing nowadays. I feel like that's something like you could throw in the mix.
Right.
Oh yeah, man, it's killing two birds with one stone.
Sure.
That's dedication.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is.
That's like a.
Yeah. For sure. But running water
that's
is
tough
huge,
though, for sure.
Huge in our religion. We baptize the same way Jesus got baptized.
Yeah.
Thousands of years ago. You wear all white. The outfit is called the resta.
Resta.
Yeah. So it's an all white outfit. We have leaves of myrtle that are placed as a crown on the head of the women and the men. You'll see a lot of similarities in our traditions with Christianity.
Now, what does the myrtle symbolize? I'm curious.
Peace and purity.
Peace and purity, and you wear that on your head?
Yes.
And you wear it on your head for any particular purpose?
That's something that I would probably have to get with a priest
to
discuss,
I love that kind of stuff, really.
Absolutely.
It is. It's very interesting, the symbolism and the meaning.
Definitely.
Somebody took some great time and space to think about, these rituals
of course.
and why they're performed.
So during the ritual, we would put up something called a drabsha, which looks like a cross. I'm sure you guys have seen the symbol. It looks like a cross, but it has a cloth that's wrapped around it.
Yeah.
And if you guys even see classical pictures of John the Baptist, he's holding a staff with a cross that has a ribbon kind of wrapped around it. So that imagery,
maybe we can pull up a photo.
Sure. So that imagery has kind of been adapted into Western culture, and it's something that we've held for a very long time.
Yeah.
It's called the drabsha. The priest.
Is that held, or who has the drabsha?
That's put up at the base of the river.
At the base of the river.
At the base of the river as a symbol.
Wow.
Then the priest, or the we call him Ginzebra. That's the
name.
Ginzebra. There are different classes of priests. So you have a Tarmida. The Tarmida is basically a disciple, a learner.
Talmida. Yeah, we have the same word.
Really?
Very similar. Talmida. You say Tarmida.
Tarmida, yeah.
Tarmida, we say Talmida.
For a disciple?
For a disciple.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like Jesus' 12 disciples, Talmida Disha.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
This is very interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah, Talmida, yeah.
So we have the...
You say Tarmida?
Talmida. You could probably switch the R's for the L's and the D's for the TH, and probably decipher the Mandaic language very simply.
Sure. In a bit, I'll speak.
There's got to be like
to you guys.
Sorry about the tangents here.
No, that's okay. That's fine. I like the.
This is how our phone call was, the other day. We're like, let's save some stuff for the
podcast. Stop.
We're gonna have no material.
So we have the Tarmida, and then we have the Ginzebra, which is a high priest, right?
Yes.
And then above the Ginzebra, we have Reshimma.
What's the word for sun?
Shemesh.
Okay.
Of course.
No problem.
Yeah. What is it?
Shemesh.
For the sun.
Yeah.
Shemesh is for the sun? You call it Shemesh.
Yeah.
Instead of Shimsha.
No, we say Shemesh.
Interesting. That's the one thing that really never got changed in their Surath. And in
Chaldean.
the Chaldean.
Yeah.
Is Shemesh never became Shimsha.
No, we call it Shemesh.
You still, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So then we
Any connection to the god Shemesh at all, or is it just the name for the sun?
So the god Shemesh is venerated not necessarily venerated, but mentioned in a book called, it's a scroll, the Arbitan scroll. It's a scroll of basically death, and like how you are supposed to prepare for a funeral and whatnot, and there's a lot of imagery.
Yeah. What do you
like
say
going back to the light.
Yeah, what do you say for moon?
Moon?
What was the god of moon? It was Sin, right?
Sin, yeah. Sin is the god of moon, yeah.
Yeah, but what do you guys call the
same
moon?
thing.
Sin?
Sin, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people say Sarah or Sara.
You know what's great is like such different cultures, but like so much similarities in like conversations like
no,
this.
it's very cool.
Learn how to tolerate each other, really, and like work together and these kind of things. So it's really, really cool. Before
you go on that, I wanted to talk about shamash or shamasha is where I was going with it. A lot of people, you guys have talmida, which is a disciple, right?
Sure.
We have deacons in the church, and they're called shamasha, right? But shamasha is a bringer of light.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it's connected to the god Shamash. Why? Because when we're crossfading between paganism, Judaism, Christianity, Shamasha was somebody who always assisted in the liturgy. I'm not really sure how it worked in Judaism at all, but I know Shamasha, because nobody can seem to figure out why do we call Shamasha Shamasha, right? But when you translate it, it's bringer of light. And I think these servants existed well before Christianity. Well, you needed these guys to have some sort of role in the Christian context. So they still kept them as shamasha, and that's what we still call them today.
That's amazing.
But that's our direct link to the ancients.
Sure.
Our indigenous past. I decline to call it pagan because it's really like a oversimplification, and I think it's a little bit unintelligent just to call things pagan.
Of course.
It really should dive into the different faiths or the indigenousness.
It's just an attack. It's a little bit of an attack on the old, right? So we'll get to that, but I just wanted to finish my point of the actual tradition of baptism. So you have the Tarmida, you have the Ginzabra, and then you also have the Rashimma, which is Rashet Ummah, head of the people.
The nation.
But nation,
yeah. That's what the Rashimma. That's what we call it.
Rashimma.
During the baptismal practice, I'm sure you guys can look up the actual baptismal practice. It's very beautiful. The priest is holding a staff called the margana. It has to come from an olive branch.
All right.
Actually, when we had one of our Ginzebras pass away, unfortunately, here,
rest his soul.
Rest his soul. They actually gave me his margana to drive and give to another Ginzebra in Toronto.
Wow.
It's a 5,000-year-old branch from a tree. And I was like, okay, no pressure at all. Here's a 5,000-year-old artifact that they're tracing back. They say 5,000, could have been 2,000, it could have been whatever, but thousands
3,000.
Thousands of years old.
Listen, you give me something that's 200 years old, I'm going to take all the care in the world as I can, let alone 1,000 or 2,000 year specimen.
So it was wrapped in a white cloth.
Yeah.
It's an olive branch. It's a huge olive branch. And again, you'll see John the Baptist holding that staff while he's baptizing. We keep that same tradition. After that, after the baptism is done, they mention something called the midwasha, which is something very important that we should discuss. But I'll finish off and then we'll discuss what the midwasha is. After the baptism is done, you'll start to see some similarities and overlaps with Christianity. So then oil is used at the top of the head.
What kind of, any type of oil?
I believe it's sesame oil.
Sesame oil, okay.
And then drinking of holy water will take place. And then blessing and eating of sacred bread as well.
Wow.
And then from
What do you call that sacred bread?
There is a specific term. I don't know it off the top of my head. I should.
We'll find out and add it in.
We'll find out and we'll add it in there. So I can look it up whenever you guys want, but we can...
look it up now.
Right.
It's not Corbana, is it?
It's not Corbana.
Well, okay.
No, it's not Corbana. And then also...
that would be very cool. That'd be crazy.
Right. Oh, man.
But you could see how the similarities in the culture. And then also the same way that you guys during the kind of liturgy of Mu'adai, how you guys give peace.
Yeah,
Shlama. We do the same thing called Tushta. You guys go like this.
No way.
Yeah, we do this. So the Ginzabra will come and hold this hand, one hand, and then say the Mirwasha, and then it's giving the Qushta, which is like, it translates as truth or an oath of purity. Right?
I think we have a word Qishta as well, and I'm not sure if it means the same thing or not.
So you're starting to see, in these traditions, you're starting to see a lot of overlaps between different groups, right? And that's why they say that some of us kind of went off to become historians, and maybe some of our traditions kind of influenced early Orthodox or Christian traditions, and you don't know what came from who, right? Because they're all kind of like merging around that time. They're all competing for dominance. They're all trying to
I mean, that's the reality of it. A lot of people don't want to admit that, but
right. This is what happens.
That is what happens.
So going back to something called the Midwasha is a very important thing in Mandaean culture. You're not Mandaean if you don't have a Midwasha. It's a baptismal name. It comes from your sign of the zodiac, which traces back to Babylonian
The astrology.
culture.
Yeah.
From Babylonian culture. We have a book called Sidrad Midwasha, which translates to Book of the Zodiac. What the priest will do is basically takes your mother's Midwasha, the time and date of your birth, where the stars and the planets were at that time, and then based on your genealogy will give you a Midwasha. And every Mandaean is born with a Midwasha.
Wow.
It's a secret name that you cannot give out to anybody, and it cannot be discussed until you die. Then that name can kind of come out into the public.
Wow.
But it's
how is it going to come out into the public if you never shared it with anybody and you die?
The other Mandaeans know it.
Only other you can never
know.
share it with non-Mandaeans.
With non-Mandaeans, it can never be shared.
Understood.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
other Mandaeans can know that name.
Yeah.
So you can't tell us right now what
I
yours
can't.
is?
No, I wouldn't even ask him.
So the Midwasha.
It's a lot of respect for that, actually. To be
Thank
honest.
you. The way that we study astrology, you can see where there was a pushback on the ancient religion because we don't necessarily look at Chaldean astrology the same way that the ancient Chaldeans were. You're starting to see kind of the leaving of that old religion and kind of a start of a new religion, right?
Has science played a role in that, maybe?
Of course.
Because,
I'm sure.
obviously we go to space now and stuff like that.
It's really interesting to bring up like the date and time and location. I've
Right.
got some friends that are, actually like studied astrology. They're very intelligent in that way.
Sure.
And they do run charts by doing the date and time location.
Of course. So same thing with ours. Except it's a pushback to these zodiacal signs, right?
Yeah.
It's a pushback. So basically we would say that the stars and the planets can influence the way that you're going to live your life based on your zodiac sign. Your Midwasha. Your
Influence or control?
Influence.
Okay,
not
cool.
control.
Yeah.
But given this Midwasha and then given certain talismans that you carry with you, right, will help counteract the influence that your zodiac sign has on your life.
Interesting. So it's like an antidote.
It's an antidote.
Yeah.
And you can see how basically it was kind of a pushback from the old ancient Babylonian religion.
Which was, and in what ways?
Because they used to venerate the gods of the stars, right? They
see.
used to worship the gods of the stars.
Understood.
Versus in our religion, it was a transitionary period. We are pushing back against that old religion.
So the ancient Babylonians did actually worship the stars.
Most likely, they most likely. They had different gods for.
Well, the god of Babylon was Marduk, right? So maybe some of those people that were in Babylon probably were worshiping the stars.
Maybe they had different deities that associated with certain stars. They might have not worshipped them as gods, right? But it was a huge part of the culture.
Yeah.
So it was kind of our way to push back against that as the old religion is starting to die down.
Sure.
And the new religion is starting to kind of take its place.
Makes sense.
So it's kind of you're starting to see the merge of these two philosophies, right? And that's a huge part for us, the Midwasha. You like I said, you cannot be Mandaean without a.
It sounds really important, if the stars influence you, and in order to have a talisman that will kind of stave off this influence that the stars may have, it's a very important process in a religion. I can imagine.
Of course, yeah. And,
what are these talismans made out of? Is that something you can discuss, or
gold, silver? They have different animals on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it so? They're made out of metal.
Yeah, made out of metal. So, for example, one of the talismans has a lion. It has a scorpion. It has a snake.
You got Leo. You got Scorpio.
Yeah, of course.
I don't think snake is part of the zodiac, but it's definitely a very important animal, and it's not a bad animal either.
Right. Isn't it? I think it's like knowledge, symbol of knowledge, right?
Possibly.
Symbol of knowledge or truth or something like that. Yeah.
Like
so we would have these talismans. This talisman is given to newlyweds. They have to kind of keep it with them for 7 days after their baptism. Yeah. And then they have to come back after 7 days, give back the talisman, and then redo another baptism. Yeah. So a lot of this ancient culture kind of still stems into our modern day lives.
That is really fascinating.
Really cool. And have you seen, this Midwasha effect on current astrology and zodiac signs, or it's like its own thing?
It's kind of its own thing.
Okay.
To be 100% honest.
So like,
yeah.
So it has no effect. It didn't influence my rising sign or my zodiac sign.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's very ancient. It's its own. Sure. It's its own way.
It's kept by you guys really internally. Okay, very cool. Very cool.
But that's kind of the Babylonian tradition that you see stemming into our current culture. But for the most part, again, going back into the religion, we're monotheists. A lot of the prophets of the Bible we venerate in our religion. Some of them we don't, but some of them we do. Like Adam, Abel, which we call Hebel Ziwa, which is Abel of light, right? Specifically John the Baptist, right?
Yeah.
We call him Yahya Yohanna Bar Zechariah, or Yohanna Masbana. So Masbana for us is our form of baptism.
Yeah.
You guys say Matmedotha, right?
Yeah.
Matmedotha, we have that word as well.
Or Ma'amdana.
Matmadana.
Yeah.
We have that word as well, but for us that means baptism in still water.
Oh.
Yeah. So we don't look at that as our baptism. It's a baptism.
Sure.
So we look at it as a baptism, but we don't look at it as our baptism. Our baptism has a specific name. It's called Mazbuta, which means baptism in flowing water. Yeah. So
I really like that concept, to be honest with you, more than a font or something like that. Go out in the water and actually be baptized.
That's how Jesus was.
That's
too.
how
exactly.
And even in Jewish culture, I think they have something called the mikvah. Mitzvah.
Something I've heard that before.
Mikvah. Basically, their baptisms have to be in flowing water as well.
Okay.
So they have these pools that they built.
Yeah.
But it's under a stream. So basically, there will be flowing water in that pool.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
we need to write to our patriarch and bring this whole running water thing back.
It would be nice, man. It would be nice. It would be a nice connection for us. But we still baptize the way that the ancients baptized.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. Even with the Margana, we see basically while the priest is holding the staff, the staff, his Nishimtha, which is his spirit, kind of leaves the body and enters the staff. Wow. That's why he blesses it into the water.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
So nobody can come to a Mandaean service unless you're Mandaean.
I'm sure you can watch the service. There are videos of people watching the service. But you cannot actually be baptized.
No, for sure. Yeah, we'll cover that one really well.
Yeah,
so
like,
no converts, no ifs, ands, or buts.
You mentioned there's a Beth Mandaean. Beth Menda.
Yeah.
Which means house of knowledge.
Yeah. Oh, house of knowledge.
House of knowledge. That's what that means. So I'll get a little.
Is there like a pool that has that running water and river, or kind of what are you guys? Obviously, it's a big problem.
Well, what do you do here in Michigan, rather?
Again, so we just go to local parks. And
okay.
What I said earlier.
Yeah.
But in Australia, they have, Mendy's close to the rivers, and they're building a really, really nice one. So it's cool that they have such a tight-knit, larger community there.
Yeah.
They're able to kind of develop more than what we are.
I've noticed that about the Australians, even Australian Chaldeans or Assyrians. There's a very, very strong community, and I feel like the Australian culture has really allowed for ethnic groups that have immigrated into Australia to be close together, to celebrate their uniqueness, to celebrate their culture, their identity. That society allows for that to happen.
Sure.
Whereas here in America, it's not so much. Being different is not the best thing in the world. Not until you're an adult and you realize being different is a great thing.
Of course, yeah.
But growing up, is not a unique thing to be. It was not a desirable thing to be.
Different.
Yeah, exactly.
In Australia, specifically, that you brought that up, I'm actually organizing a picnic between the Assyrians and Mandaeans.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
where in Sydney, Melbourne?
Sydney.
Really?
So there's a huge Assyrian population.
And you're going, or are you just organizing?
I'm not going. I'm organizing. I wish I could. I'm probably.
It's quite the trip for a
when
picnic
is it?
Organization. Yeah.
It's in March. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to lead it up to the Akitu festival. Our goal is for the Mandaeans to celebrate Akitu with the rest of the Chaldeans and Assyrians.
Wouldn't that be incredible?
Yeah, because
do you guys normally? Is that part of your?
We don't celebrate Akitu at all.
Do we have a New Year celebration?
We do have a New Year celebration, but what happened is, unfortunately, there's so much to get into. So because everything is kind of related to each other.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
We don't have a leap year in our calendar. So what happened over the years, the priests used to kind of adjust that, and then our New Year celebration would line up with the Akitu Babylonian New Year celebration.
Okay, but never celebrated it as Akitu.
Not as Akitu, but it's our New Year, religious New Year.
Yeah.
During Akitu, because it's part. Nowruz is just it's part of our tradition as indigenous people to celebrate New Year at this time in April, right? As time went on and as the calendar wasn't adjusted, it kind of fell out of sync with the Akitu festival. But I think it's a great way for us to kind of reclaim our indigenous roots, and kind of find a way to celebrate a festival that's non-religious, and a way to kind of bring the communities together.
So I think that's wonderful. I think
oldest party.
If I don't end up in the homeland this year, I think we should do something here as well.
That would be great.
Yeah, we definitely have the manpower to do it.
Yeah. So going back to why the calendar wasn't adjusted, here's a pretty interesting tidbit for you guys. So during the 1800s, I think I have it in my notes of exactly when it happened. 1831, there was a cholera breakout. And I would say 99% of the priestly class died.
No way.
Yeah. So because, again, when we baptize in water, we have to drink from the river 3 times. There was a cholera outbreak.
Oh my gosh.
Because we would baptize daily back in Iraq, we were exposed to that outbreak, unfortunately. So the entire priestly class was wiped out. I would say a majority of Mandaeans were just completely wiped out. So there was a gentleman, he was a Termida, by the name of Ram Zahrun. Him and his first cousin actually re-established what they knew from the teachings of the Mandaean community. They went around to all of the different villages and kind of collected whatever scrolls they could collect, and they refounded the religion from the ground up. And that's when Esdras kind of came, and he kind of translated a lot of stuff for her.
Yeah.
And so with all the massacres and the genocides that we went through, we kind of survived that up until the 1830s, and then majority of us were completely wiped out, and then there was a rebuilding, and that kind of that played a huge part of why we kind of don't have an orthodoxy now, just because so many of the older priestly class were kind of gone at that point.
Wow.
So he's venerated in our tradition. But yeah, in our tradition we have something called coliforms, basically colophons, I believe, and it's a written history of who copied this. And we believe that whoever copies a religious text gets favor, when going to heaven. Gets favor because they're passing on this tradition to the next generation, So we can actually trace back the earliest writings to a Reshima named Zazai, to the early Parthian Empire.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it's just written to the next person, to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. So it's really interesting. That's a little bit on the religion.
Yeah.
Obviously, John the Baptist is one of our main prophets. We don't necessarily consider him the founder of the religion, but we look at him as a reformer of the religion. Somebody who was a great prophet within our religion.
So, like, what I've heard is, people say you worship John the Baptist, but that's not true.
That's not
true.
true.
You have a monolithic
we
religion.
don't worship.
You worship one God,
prophet.
and
there's one God, which we call Hay Rabbi, which means or Rabba, Hay Rabba, right? Which means the great life. Hay means life. Rabbi, Rabba.
Hay means
Hay becomes Hay.
Hay.
Hay Rabba.
Rabba or Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
We say Rabba.
So our main book is called the Ginza Rabba. Ginza Rabba, which means the great treasure.
Ginza is a treasure?
Ginza, Kins, which in Arabic went and became Kens.
Yeah.
But Ginza is the way that we say it. Yeah. So Ginza Rabba is the great treasure. That's our book. But no, we don't worship John the Baptist or any priest. We believe in one supreme God, right? The God of light. We look at heaven as al-Manhura, which means the world of light. We don't believe in a concept of hell.
Okay.
We believe in a concept of purgatory. So we believe that once you die, you go to purgatory and you kind of live out your sentence, and then after you lived out your sentence, then you can get reconnected with the world of light or heaven.
A little tangent here. I've watched a couple like near-death experience videos of, or documentaries of people that have experienced like, dying on an operation table and then going to heaven and meeting, different beings and so on and so forth.
Sure.
And few of them received, these insights or messages while being, declared dead.
Right.
That there are souls that after they die do not know how to cross over. I think that's in line with purgatory.
1,000,000%, I believe so. Yeah.
And so science and people with actual anecdotal evidence are coming back and sharing these interesting experiences. I just thought it was uncanny, because we've got the concept of purgatory, and so do you. And there are souls that don't cross over, according to people that have died and found out some things.
Sure.
What I thought was fascinating is a lot of these people that come back and share these things don't have any religious affiliation at all, so they're not pushing any sort of agenda.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But they are all coming to the same conclusion based on
Some of them are religious, some of them are not, some are Hindu, some are Muslim, some are Christian, Jewish.
Right.
Really interesting to hear how all these people have died and come back with similar stories on what afterlife is
Crazy.
like. And it's very, very interesting. We can share these.
That much,
man, that's another.
But I have heard that some of them they'll meet let's say if like their mom had a miscarriage or they had a sibling that passed away, they'd meet them for the first time, like in that kind of transition. They'd say go back.
It's crazy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we don't necessarily have a concept of hell. Again, just purgatory. We believe in 3 natures that every human being is born with. We believe in a kind of animalistic nature, right, which is just your regular nature.
Yeah.
We believe in something which is called the ruha, which ruha means spirit. You guys use it for Holy Spirit when you guys say ruha al-Qudsa.
You could know, but we also say ruha for spirit.
Ruha for spirit.
Ruha,
so we have ruha and we have nishimtha, right?
Nishimtha.
Yeah. So the ruha to us is a bad spirit, right? It's a spirit that kind of tempts you to do bad. Just like how I think in Christianity there's a soul and a spirit.
Okay.
Right? So it's kind of that separation.
All right.
So we look at the ruha as a bad spirit that kind of pulls us to sin. And then we look at the nishimtha, which is the spirit given to us by God.
Okay.
Which kind of pushes us to become pure and holy. So it's a constant tug of war between the ruha and the nishimtha of, are you going to be a bad person or are you going to be a good person? And they're both tugging on your intrinsic animalistic nature of being a human being. So they're kind of pulling at you. And based on your deeds and what you do throughout your life is you'll either pour more into this cup or you'll pour more into that cup. And that will determine whether you go to purgatory or if you can go into heaven.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about the religion. I don't know if I answered your question.
I'm just wondering, like, what are the ramifications for choosing the ruha inclinations? Is purgatory the punishment?
The punishment. Yeah.
That is the punishment.
That is
the limbo.
Yeah.
And does it work the same way? If that enough people that are still living pray for you, you can make it into heaven, or do you stay there for an indeterminable amount of time? Is it an eternal place, or is it just a halfway house?
I think it's a halfway house.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a halfway house that basically once you've kind of done your time, you get to kind of.
Who determines how much time you do?
I don't know, to be honest with
you.
That's,
no, I'm curious. I find
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, determines all.
Determines all.
Yeah.
10 years, boom.
That's
you know what I'm saying?
Now, if you teach classes down there, can you shorten it up? Like
possibly. You guys are lawyers, so maybe
you copy enough religious books. No, I don't want to. I'm not making fun. I promise. Right. But I'm just piggybacking off the discussion. If you copy enough religious books, you might have a chance.
You might have a chance of 5 years. Rather than
exactly. Sure. Lower sentence. Good behavior.
Right. For
lower
sure.
sentence.
For sure. Absolutely.
That is really fascinating.
Yeah. Very
That is incredible. I really enjoy spiritual discussions and how we've got a lot of linguistic overlaps and even religious conceptual overlaps as well.
Yeah, but you have to realize that we are both remnants of the Akkadian Empire, right? So lingually, it's basically the same language, different dialects, right? We're both in the same region, basically sharing philosophy and discussing religion
Yeah.
for thousands of years in that same period, right?
Yeah.
In that same region. So you're going to naturally see these overlaps and naturally see
Yeah.
these connections.
Now we're doing it on video.
Now we're doing it on video. And the thing is because politics and geographical location has kind of separated us for so long that we developed one way, you guys developed another way.
Sure.
And then obviously the whole Arabization kind of hindered our development into, modern times. But as these communities in the diaspora are kind of next to each other now, right? Like 90% of my friends are Chaldean-Assyrian.
Yeah.
Right? I learned Aramaic because I've listened to all my Chaldean-Assyrian
Sure.
friends, right? So like now when they speak Surat, I'm understanding probably 80% of the conversation.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But because we're kind of placed right next to each other now, it's opened up the chance for us to have dialogue and like, who are you guys? Where do you come from?
I can't help but think that our ancestors must be incredibly proud that we've all found
I would
each
really
other.
hope so.
No, I'm serious. Like, me and Alex being in Iraq and then connecting with you and then now you're here,
Right.
I can't help but imagine that our ancestors thought, man, we've distanced so far from each other. I hope they find each other again.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. I agree.
And
Absolutely.
being in here in diaspora, like, what are the chances your family would choose Michigan? His family would choose Michigan. My family would choose Michigan.
Yeah.
I know it's a game of telephone. Hey, this place is nice. It's, you can open up a store here. It'll be fine. It'll be good. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But the fact that we've all come together with
It's
this unified purpose
So
and
I
interest.
believe it's fate. I truly believe that
Yeah, I
God
do
puts
too.
you in certain positions. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. So we are from, my grandmother's side was from Qiyat Saleh, like I told you, in Basra.
Yeah.
Right? There was one family from Tel Kepe, okay, who moved from Tel Kepe and went to this village because the guy's wife was a nurse. So she was helping kind of deliver all the babies here.
Yeah, there was
and
economic
whatnot.
opportunity. There was a lot of oil fields there.
Of course.
So a lot of
Date farms.
yeah,
like you
yeah.
said, a lot of people.
Yeah,
were
but a lot of our
farmers.
people would have moved down there probably for the oil fields and those opportunities.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there was one family that lived
Engineering
there.
opportunities.
Sure.
Yeah.
And she was that lady was my grandmother's nurse for her whole life, right? And she grew up with her son, and my grandma would tell me stories of they would be on the river in the old boats together and kind of like and they're close to each other.
Yeah.
And then years later, we moved to Oak Park, and then my neighbors are that man's daughters.
No way.
Yeah, and there are very, very close family. I look at her like my mother. She would feed me from a distitha, Riza Maraka, like from
Riza Maraka, that's great.
all her daughters would be sitting there.
Wait, is that what you call it too, or is this your?
Wait,
what?
Timmennu Marka, because
that's
it's
Arabic,
Arabic.
yeah.
We use the Arabic term.
Timmen.
But
you have to revive the Riza Maraka.
we actually say Renza.
Renza.
So it would be Renza Maraka.
What is
Do you still call Maraka?
We say Marga because nobody really uses the Aramaic dialect anymore, right?
Yeah.
This is the whole reason why I kind of started my page
Yeah,
to kind of give us certain words that we're able to kind of use in our daily
using
language.
again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you go look at my fridge, I have all the colors.
Yeah.
So now whenever I want to say a color, instead of ahmar, I'll say smoka.
Yeah.
Instead of azraq, I'll say zarqa.
Yeah.
Right?
That's like Alex demanding that all of his family members talk to him in Surat. It's like there's always
It's true. I have my uncle. He's like, "ذاك مكد إنجليزي لعاني من عاني."
He's
بس صورة أنا لك من مكد إنجليزي.
So going back to that,
after I told him to stop speaking English to me, he's yelling at me not to speak English to him now.
أنا مع حياتي اللي بشكارة كبيرة وقت ليه ما حكي سورة بعد.
I would love to speak to you guys in our dialect just to see if you guys would understand anything.
Sure.
So just before that, I would just hit around the food. What's like some of your most traditional dishes, or you would say?
There's a big debate online whether it's pacha or doma. You guys eat pacha?
We eat pacha.
Or what can you eat? What can't you eat? Or maybe I don't know if you have rules like that.
There are a lot of rules. So I mean,
interesting. Okay.
Shrimp is kind of looked down upon. We have to
just like Jewish people.
Yeah, we have to
oysters too, probably.
Yeah, all types of shellfish.
Yeah.
You have to
basically
pray over any of the animals that you kill, just because we look at it as a sin to kill. So because we're killing this animal, we're asking for forgiveness for killing this animal.
Yeah.
Right? So kosher, or whatever you want to call it, right?
What do you call it? Is there a term for it or no?
There's probably an old Mandaic term, but like I said, everything has become Arabized.
Sure, yeah.
Right? So a lot of the stuff has become Arabized. I'm sure the priestly class has these terms that they use specifically. But yeah, our foods, our main dish, a dish that I love is timen uliban, right? That's the Arabic term for it, but it's
timen uliban.
Yeah.
So yogurt and rice.
Yogurt, rice, and dates.
Oh.
And it's eaten at night
with
milk, and it is unbelievable.
Oh, so it's like a rice pudding in a way.
Kind of, yeah. So you take the yogurt, you put it on top of the rice, you pour a little milk on top of it to kind of make it a little bit softer, and then you eat it with dates.
It's like a thick yogurt, for sure.
Unbelievable. So that's
that sounds really good.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. We obviously have dolma, we have pacha, we have all this kind of stuff. Our pacha's a little bit different than your guys' pacha.
What's different?
You guys have bombada and kadbaya and whatnot. We have like a literal goat head. Like that's the pacha that they would eat. Like
we actually have that.
Yeah. We do actually have that too.
Yeah.
Do you? Okay.
Because every year my dad would tell us, we eat pacha at Christmas. We used to back home. We used to put the head goat.
Back home we used
right
to
in the middle.
Exactly.
And then everybody would crack the head, and everone would attack
fight over the eyes. One time, my uncle.
I'm like, when are you gonna bring it here?
My uncle would always tell me, we would eat the tongue, and you want to try the eyes, and I was like, no, man, I'm good.
I haven't tried the eyes. I've tried a lot of things, but I like the tongue. I like the tongue.
Yeah,
I've tried tongue. It's pretty good.
Oh, it's very tender. If you can get over the fact that you're eating the tongue of an animal, like it's delicious.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. We have a lot of foods. We have dajat sabba, which is a huge dish in our community. It's a specifically spiced either chicken or duck.
Okay.
Right? We have beshet sabba as well.
What was that called again?
Beshet sabba.
Beshet sabba?
Yeah.
Beshet is duck.
Yeah, it's a duck.
Yeah. But they call them batta too, don't they?
Batta, but we say beshet.
Beshet and dajaj is chicken.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we have a lot of dishes, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
we have to invite us over for dinner.
We have to.
I want a Mandaean dinner.
Yeah. That'd be cool, man.
That'd be great.
You guys just bring some bombada,
that's a very big request, man.
That's a big request.
I'm going to have to call it a favor.
Oh, yeah.
Mom!
For sure.
We're going to have to call a few people before we can convince
You ever seen,
we'll stick to Dolma.
You ever seen, what was it, Wedding Crashers? Was it, Mom, the meatloaf! Mom! Bombada! Going forward, we're probably going to be best friends from now on.
100%.
And I think we're going to be able to see each other's evolution. That's a lovely thing about being friends with people, is that you get to be a part of their growth and transformation, and they could see yours. And 10 years down the road, you're like, damn, you remember that one time?
Right.
Where we were.
Sit down and had a podcast.
But
let me tell you something. Me and Joe went to high school together.
Wow.
But he was one grade above me, and I knew who he was because he was the drummer boy walking around Brother Rice hitting the drums, but we never spoke or anything like that. I first met him in Iraq.
Wow.
For the first time 4 months ago.
The other crazy thing is I've been
and we've been nonstop talking since then.
Pretty much, yeah.
So you don't.
I've been really good friends with your cousin as well, and she's awesome. She's a sweetheart. But for a couple years, she's like, you really get along with my cousin Alex.
Yeah.
She
was telling me the same thing. You gotta be my friend Joe. I was like, Joe, I went to high school with him, but we never talked.
So it finally happened, and I'm a busy guy, man. It's like I don't really have time to meet new people like that.
Sure.
If I'm out and about with the friends that I already have, and new people start to come in, whatever. But set up a meeting to meet Alex, because somebody recommended him. I need to know more information, But when the divine put us together, his cousin included, in Iraq, on this 20-person, maybe less Sprinter van. You tend to have a lot of beautiful conversations. You realize you have a lot in common. He's an attorney. I'm an attorney, and he's also a musician as well. Plays piano.
Right.
So it's really cool, man. This journey is really taking. And this is a very short journey, by the way. We're talking about we met in September.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Look at how it's evolving.
Yeah. It's really
a lot more to come, and and stuff like that.
I'm sure. I mean, look where it led us.
Yeah, and now you're here, so maybe we can. Yeah. No, it really is, and fate's it's an amazing thing, and how it's really weave my course and my path, and I'm sure others, and
of course,
and where we're at. So definitely blessed to meet you, have you here, and of course meeting Joe.
Yeah, man.
And cultures and what cultures has brought us really together, and obviously absolutely. You now and hopefully brings more people together.
I truly hope so.
There's something that I really appreciated about what you shared during this discussion, and it's that your community has largely lost its culture, and it's lost its language. And after, I don't know how long it's been, since it's probably been hundreds of years, right? What was the year, like 1100 AD or somewhere? What was the year that you said was, or a period where you really started to lose the language?
I mean, it started obviously during the Islamic conquest, but then it really probably started hitting probably 1800s.
With the cholera outbreak, right?
The cholera outbreak.
Okay.
They stopped speaking the language, and then as you guys say Mishmana, we say Mishmani.
Mishmani.
Yeah, Mishmani or Mushmana, right?
Okay, Mushmana.
Yeah, so when the Mishmana came and they kind of started taking over our villages, that's when we really stopped speaking that language. And for me, it's such an important aspect of a culture.
Yeah.
A group of people that doesn't have a Lishana, a native language, loses their identity, right? So I feel like for me, that was my main goal, is to try to at least introduce some words into the vocabulary.
That's
right?
incredible.
If somebody can at least say Shlama instead of Salam.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just that alone. What does that open?
It's a paradigm shift, really.
What does that
once
open?
you know.
Like, if me and you can communicate in our native dialect together, right? So instead of us being 50,000, it opens the door to what? There are 4 million Suraya?
Oh my gosh! I mean, that's
Yeah,
well,
I've seen
so
3
4
or
million,
5. So I've
4 million Surai, but that takes into account Suryoyo, Arameans, Assyrians, and Chaldeans.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing that we've been trying to demonstrate to the Chaldean community, is that it's not just Chaldeans. It's Assyrians, it's Mandaeans, it's the Syriacs, it's the Suryoye, right?
We're all
because
one
if
family,
we all united, and preserved our cultures for generations, and our language and our music and all of that,
And
what a
start speaking
great
up
service
together.
to the humanity of our community that will be.
And to our forefathers. Look what we're
Exactly.
doing.
Oh, yeah.
And then also, to take this like to the ultimate step, I believe, is that when we have that much strength in numbers,
You have your own country.
you can have your own autonomous region, at least to start,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
But the issues that have presented themselves over the last 100 years is that many countries tried to help us get a country or an autonomous region. It's that they saw us to be too divided
In order to
make that happen.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Too divided. And you've been reviving your language for some time now.
Yeah.
Over after several hundred years, many centuries of it being extinct,
Sure.
essentially.
Yeah.
We're at the place as Chaldeans, as Assyrians, as Surai, at least that's the most acceptable term,
Sure.
catch-all term.
Right.
Our language is not extinct yet. Our parents are still speaking it. We've got a lot of younger people speaking it. So hopefully we don't get to the place where
We are.
exactly
100%.
you are the you're the quintessential example
Of what can happen.
what can happen. Is
Yeah.
like why can't we prevent that from happening? And I think we should. This is a demonstration that we should.
This is the main kind of inspiration that I've gotten from your community, is when I look at my community and I say, wow, look at how the Suraya have kind of preserved their culture, their language, their dance, their food, their dress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And look what happened to us.
On the dress part.
Right. But look what happened to us. We've lost our cultural identity, our linguistic identity. We only have the religion to kind of piggyback on, right?
Yeah.
For anything. We don't even know, are we Babylonian? Are we not? Are we this? And so it took me really diving deep into the literature, both, the Mandaic literature and the academic literature, and kind of cross-referencing. And then I have a unique perspective because I'm around so many Suraya. I'm able to kind of compare our languages and compare our history, and it kind of put me in the position of like, hey, you have a duty to kind of help your people, because do you know how many people message me on a daily basis? I'm going through identity crisis. What are we?
Same with me and Alex.
Yeah, same with me, yeah.
And I feel like I have a responsibility to these people to kind of not allow them to go through the things that I've went through. Because for so long, I went through an identity crisis. I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And then now I finally feel rooted in my identity.
I agree.
What did that do for me? That allowed me to come and sit down with you guys and be confident in myself and know that, hey, just like you guys, I'm also indigenous from Mesopotamia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to kind of share my experience, my unique kind of perspective, being Southerners rather than being from the North like you guys, right?
Yeah.
And it's offered kind of a piece for myself, you know, and I'm hoping to kind of give that to other people.
That's incredible. That's really beautiful. And I feel like that's our mission here as well. At the end of the day, is bring our people together, shed some light on the reality, the truth, with a high degree of integrity and accuracy with our research, versus just oral history or older generations saying, "Oh, well, that's just the way it is." Well,
and using our education we've gotten here because of our parents coming over here to really put a foot onto that and build from that and just keep building on revitalizing our culture and stuff like that.
I really feel that God put us here. I will speak for myself. I really feel that God put me here in diaspora. I'd never planned on becoming an attorney. It just something that happened.
Right.
I think we talked about it earlier.
Sure.
Something that happened. And I ended up in this position. And then you meet you guys where we can talk about these things and keep it together and really make a big difference in our homeland.
Absolutely.
It would be a great catastrophe if we lost our foothold in the homeland.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
Because imagine trying to get that back. We still have people there.
Yeah.
And you still have people there.
We've lost that.
You don't have any people there.
Imagine.
We have some people there, but they're mostly in Baghdad, right?
Mostly in Baghdad.
Mostly in Baghdad, and then again because of the religious persecution, they've even left Baghdad. Now they've left the only homeland that we've had. And now they're in Erbil, which is not necessarily our homeland; it's your guys' homeland.
Yeah.
But at least we're accepted there.
It's kind of like the Iraqi Jews. I mean, for so many years, I think I was hearing, there's like one family left, one family. We're gonna feel terrible if we ever think that there's only one family or hear that.
Well, that's never going to happen. As long as Alex and I are still alive, there's a lot of other people that are working for the same initiative.
A lot, yeah.
But as long as we're still alive, we're going to make sure that we lead our community the best we can in whatever capacity we're able to, in the right direction, to preserve our language and the dances and the cultures. And thankfully, there are a lot of different groups out there, Assyrian, Chaldean, Syriac groups that are really pulling their weight, whether it's in here or Chicago or California,
I think
Germany, Sweden, Belgium, even. There's a really cool, man. It's really cool to see.
That's my goal, honestly, for my people too, is to. We've been so separate and thinking of either you guys are Nahrain or you guys think of us as Nahrain for so long that there's been such a divide. Like I've had a lot of Mandaean people say that, I wish there was some support from the Suraya for us and for them not to look at us like we're Nahrain because that's our only connection to another group that's the same as us and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And so now with this page, it's opened that door, right? And that door has kind of been flooded open, right? And my goal is to create a school to revive the language, right? Maybe have some Assyrian speakers there, have some Mandaic speakers there, and maybe revive this language and make it mutually intelligible between both groups, so we can actually have conversations with each other. And
maybe like a joint institute,
dialogue is the best way, for us to start working together. And this is a start
because
indigenous Mesopotamian collective,
something like that.
Yeah, right? It was literally something that just came to me.
IMC. Something like that, right?
None of you guys take that.
So
I'm a trademark.
So that's been my goal, to be honest with you.
It's great, man.
To try to revive the language. The language has been so important to me because I feel like once we have a language, everything else will fall into place.
Immense respect. Language is a cornerstone of any culture. It's the thing that
I can definitely relate.
I would love to read you guys some of our language.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
And while you're getting that, I definitely can relate because I grew up not knowing the language, and now I've been studying the language. I took classes to how to read and write early on, so that was a good foundation. But now I've had I'm not studying law anymore, and I got time, and I'm really studying the language really reinvigorates the studying of the culture and getting into
it
the
makes
culture.
more sense. Everything makes more sense when you know the
yeah,
language.
it just goes in line. It's crazy, and it's amazing.
For example, this was something
I commend you for what you're doing.
This is something I was discussing with. You guys have heard of Assyrian Chad?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. He's our friend.
Yeah. So this is something I was discussing with him on Instagram. So
we might need to cut that one out of the haters.
Hey, let him hate, man.
Yeah.
Chaldean Nation, what up? So the word that we use for people of the mountains, right, is Nashatura, obviously. Yeah. But we call mountaineers Turaya.
Turaya.
Turaya, but we say Turaya.
Turaya.
Yeah, Turaya.
Turaya for a singular person or Turaya for the people as well?
Turaya for a singular person.
Okay, Turaya.
Turai.
Exactly. Turaya, yeah, okay. Yeah. Same thing.
So that's how we pronounce it.
Turaya, yeah. We have the same thing.
Yeah, same thing. So let's see what else. We say Nuna for fish.
Yeah, we say Nunta.
Nunta, yeah. Which is a feminine version of it.
Yeah.
Nuna, Nunta, same thing. Yeah. For Jesus, we say Isham Shiha.
Okay.
Just like you guys.
You guys say Isham Shiha.
Yeah.
No, but so Mshiha means Messiah.
Yes.
How is it that you guys have also referred to Jesus as a Messiah?
In our books, he's referenced as a Messiah.
Really?
Yeah, he's referenced as a Messiah. There is
in the Quran, what is he referenced as?
Great debate between the community.
Yeah.
Something that I kind of don't want to get into here.
No, for sure. I just thought it was interesting because the Jews do not have a Messiah. They're still waiting for the Messiah.
Yeah.
But in the Mandaeanism,
we call him Isham Shiha.
Yeah. Exactly. Very interesting.
So
Arabic. What do they say in Arabic?
Messiah.
Masihi, right?
Yeah, Messiah. Well, Messiah is one who is Christian. Messiah.
Right,
exactly,
which comes from Messiah.
Yeah, Messiah.
Yeah, okay.
So we also said,
I'm just wondering if there's like a relationship there.
Sure.
Well, there is, Messiah, Messiah, of course.
So you guys say smoka for red.
Yeah.
Same way that we do. Zarqa for blue.
Yeah.
We say iqoma for black. You guys say koma. We say ekoma.
Ekoma.
Yeah.
Ekoma.
You guys say khwara for white.
Yeah.
We say hawara.
Hawara.
With the H.
Yeah.
Hawara.
And you guys kind of like prolong the syllables Hawara instead of khwara.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Basima is the same.
Basima.
Yeah.
Basima.
You guys,
the essentials.
How do you guys say tree?
Treat.
Tree. Like
treat. Hilana.
Yeah,
you say Ilana.
We say Ilana.
Ilana without the H.
Yeah, we say Ilana.
Okay.
Let's see what else.
Some of our dialects all say Ilana.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you guys say cow?
Cow, tawarta.
We say turta.
Yeah, turta.
Turta.
Yeah.
So some of them we prolong and some of them we shorten.
Exactly. You guys say it specifically in Assyrian dialect. I think Shapira is a big word.
Shapira.
We say Shafira.
Shafira. That like the Suryoye, they say Shafiro. Shafiro.
So that's that.
Wow.
Yeah.
For music, we say Zamara. For you guys, that means singer.
Yeah.
So it's almost the same, right? For meat, you guys say Posra?
Yeah, Posra.
We say Bisra.
Bisra. Yeah.
So I know some Assyrians also say Bisra.
They also say that as well, yeah. Bisra.
You guys say Lukhma for bread?
Or Lakhma, yeah.
We say Lahma.
Lahma. Yeah, we say Lakhma.
Yeah.
Some say Lukhma if you're like Tilkitnai dialect.
They say, yeah.
Yeah, you say Lahma?
Lahma, yeah.
Okay, with a head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lahma, yep. Let's see what else. Other words. So obviously family, you guys say Nashutha.
Yeah.
We say Anashutha.
Anashuta. So you add that A in the beginning on some of the...
Yeah. You guys, Arya is lion.
Yeah.
For us.
Arya, yeah.
Yeah. Gabara is Gabara. Right?
Gabara.
Yeah.
You have the same?
So this is something very interesting. So in Syriac, there's a rule that you guys have.
Syriac?
Yeah, Syriac. There's a rule that you guys have, basically where you switch the B with a W.
Yeah.
For certain words, right?
Yeah, if there's a dot underneath the B, I believe.
Yeah.
So you guys say the word Gora for man, right?
Yeah.
So we say the word Gabra.
Gabra.
For man. Because Gabra and Gabara are the same root words.
Right.
Mm. But when you guys spell Gora, you guys spell it as Gabra. Mm. But because of your rule, you switch the letters.
So we really spell it the same, but
We
pronounce
spell
it
it the
differently.
same,
Yeah.
but pronounce it differently. Yeah.
You know,
So
one
we
of
say-
the Surah books I had that had me confused for like months. Because I was reading the book and I'm like, I know this is not how you say this word,
Yeah.
Gora. And I just see B. I kept saying Gab. I'm like, this is not a word. It's not a
Yeah.
word.
Yeah,
and then I
that's
learned
how
that
we
this
pronounce it.
dot is changes the whole letter
Interesting.
into the W. Which
Yeah, and we say
So it was a
Samba.
user error, not the book error.
no, it was me. I was the error.
Okay, I was just wondering.
I thought for actually.
I'm not singling you out as it. I'm
No,
just trying
I
to get
thought
down
of the book was a mistake for a long time until I learned this rule.
Yeah.
And I even had conversations with other people saying that the book had a lot of mistakes with
Yeah.
it. And then I went back and looked and said, oh no, there was a dot in every B
Yeah.
that then makes
Sure,
it.
sure.
So Sal, you mentioned earlier that your family has done jewelry for the King of England, the FDR,
Yeah.
maybe Saddam Hussein, I think.
Yeah, my grandfather actually made a crown for some time. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
crown
yeah,
for
yeah.
Saddam! Wow,
Yeah.
that's I'm sure he'll love that one.
Right.
You know he loves swords too. So,
For sure, for sure.
But is there any reason why like your family was so big into jewelry, or like is that something with Mandaeans?
Yeah, so that's something specifically with Mandaeans. It's kind of our traditional craft.
Okay.
It's either that or boat building. So
Oh,
my
okay.
grandfather.
It makes sense being
Yeah.
river people.
Yeah, yeah.
So my great grandfather on my
The jewelry
mother's
side is really interesting.
Yeah. So my great grandfather on my mother's side, the one who had the date farm,
Mhm.
was also a boat builder. So
Mhm.
he would sell boats to people. But on my father's side, they're all jewelers. And even on my mother's side now, they're jewelers. So I mean, on both sides of my family, like my father is a diamond dealer now.
Mm.
My grandfather, like I said, used to make crowns for Saddam.
Is he still around?
Yeah, he is. Actually.
Okay,
Yeah, he
amazing.
still lives here in Michigan.
Oh, he's in Michigan.
Oh, that's
Wow,
good.
pay him a visit.
Yeah,
man. I think
yeah.
think I need a crown.
Yeah, so what happened with that is Saddam was actually going to execute somebody's child or some guy, right?
Okay.
And so his parents came to my grandfather because my grandfather was at the Geneva conference representing Iraq for economy, right?
Wow.
He owned basically like when you would like trade American dollars for dinar. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exchange.
He was
Yeah.
the head of the National Iraqi newspaper. He ran the Nadi Ta'aruf, which was the biggest nightclub in Iraq.
Uh-huh.
So he was like big in the community. They basically came to my grandfather and said, "Can you make something for Saddam in order for our son not to get killed?" And so they commissioned a crown to make him, and then he gave it to him, and I guess they did.
They were Mandaean people.
I don't think they were Mandaean people.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they were Mashmani or something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And basically, they would come to us because we are the jewelers, the historic jewelers.
Yeah.
And we would do that kind of stuff. But
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
man, it's been in my family for at least 1,000 years, right?
Wow.
Like my great grandfather's great grandfather's great grandfather's great
Oh,
grandfather's.
yeah.
They're all jewelers, right? There was a specific street called, I think, Chaldean-Assyrian back in Baghdad.
Yeah, River Street.
River Street, yeah. And that's where all of the jewelers
Yeah.
came from. Amara came from Nasriya, came
Yeah.
from Basra, came from wherever.
Yeah.
And they all set up shop there.
That's crazy.
And-
River people doing business on River Street.
Yeah, exactly.
Insane.
Opening all our jewelry stores there. And I can show you guys some pictures of these jewelry stores, man. Like, this is somebody that I'm related to. And
Now, are these jewelry stores still there?
No.
No, they're all gone.
They're all gone.
Oh, what a catastrophe.
Yeah, it's very sad. But
Wow.
this is one of the most high def pictures I've ever seen. But this is a traditional Mandaean jeweler. As you can see, he's dressed in his traditional white robe.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah, and the type of jewelry that they're famous for making is called Iraqi Nieloware or Nilioware.
Nelio.
Yeah, it's silver that's carved and kind of coated with a specific type of ink.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is such a cool photo.
Yeah, and when I open my jewelry store, I'm gonna have a bunch of these old pictures, and so
That's a very tan looking guy. This had to be in the South.
So this guy is
I
Arbaya.
noticed that too.
For sure,
He's
100%.
Arbaya, but as you can see, the Mandaean is not.
Oh man, this guy just looks like he's like a wizard. I'm serious. Have you seen this photo?
That's good.
I'm serious, man. Look at his glasses and the head thing. Wow.
So is there a history with like jewelry in Mandaean, or is it kind of your family? Okay,
it's just it's like all Mandaeans are historically in the jewelry business.
Okay, so like it's not just your family.
No, it's not just my family. It's all Mandaeans. I have family in Dubai. I have family in my family in Toronto. They own a jewelry business called Kalani Jewelry. They're actually minority owners of the Toronto Raptors.
Oh wow!
They've done jewelry for Drake, The Weeknd, Kim Kardashian, Steph Curry. Like, jewelry is huge in our family. This is my great uncle. This is Abbas Amara.
Wow.
The brother of Zahrun Amara, making jewelry in the traditional way.
What is the traditional way? I mean, if it could be simplified.
I'll show you.
Actually. Okay.
So this is a video. Maybe we can put it up.
Definitely gonna put it up.
We'll put up everything for sure.
So this is a video that I actually had to hunt down from World War I. It's in the Australian Army archives.
Oh wow!
Of my great uncle Zahrun Amara making jewelry.
Yeah.
And this is the only video of him.
Really?
Yes. So I can play this for you guys. It says, "Ye old metalworker, this method of repairing jewelry back to biblical days." And that's him. That's my great uncle.
Can you see that, Alex?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, making jewelry by hand. As you can see, his son is pushing the bag to make the kind of fire go up.
Yeah, he's adding air, like wind, to make the heat and flame up, right?
Yeah.
To melt probably whatever metal is there.
Yeah.
Wow,
this is
this
alchemy.
is so
this
traditional.
Is straight alchemy. It's wow. What year do we know this is from?
This is from late 1800s, early 1900s. So again, it's been in my family.
That's
forever.
classic, dude.
Like I said, my father is a diamond dealer, which has led me into the jewelry business as well now.
You found that where?
This is in the Australian Army archives.
We might have to do a little digging just so let's see Chaldean or Assyrian type archives.
There has to be.
Because
there has to be. I'm just curious.
This is during the war with the Ottomans.
If they found like
early 1900s, 1950s,
Mandaean, jewelry making practices, they had to run across some Assyrian or
A cool thing about that is some of the Mandaeans used to make the decorative pieces for the Assyrian khanjars because we were so renowned for our silver and goldsmithing, and you guys were renowned for your bladesmithing. That you would see a kind of transmission or kind of sharing collaboration between the two groups.
Sure.
That's something that I've always been super
ancient joint ventures.
Exactly, yeah. But again, that's why I kind of got into the jewelry business as well.
Yeah. How long have you been in that?
It's something that I just grew up around. To be honest with you. I've always been in it. Yes, I went to school and I studied finance and I did all this stuff, but jewelry has been in my blood forever, and it's something that I kind of just grew up in. I'm actually, the hat that I'm wearing right now, I'm partners with
that's a diamond.
Yeah, I'm partners with a jeweler in Birmingham. His name is David Walkler. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar.
I'm not that familiar with the jewelry circuit.
He's a huge jeweler, and he traces his ancestry. He's Jewish, but he traces his ancestry to doing jewelry for a few hundred years, and I obviously trace my ancestry for
thousands of years.
So it was only right for us to kind of come together and collaborate.
That's beautiful.
Are you giving him lessons?
Maybe he can give me some lessons, to be honest with you. But man. So it's just something that I've really been passionate about. Even the name of my jewelry brand that I want to start is called Mason Maroney. Okay. Which is House of Maroney. Yeah. And I'm thinking about doing a play on words and making it Mason Maroney.
Mason.
Yeah, Mason Maroney, because that's where we're historically from. Yeah. Something I'm still kind of debating on, but I want to have these kind of pictures. And I want to celebrate my culture at the same time. Because nobody really knows about us, and nobody knows how prominent we were in jewelry business. Like, even my great uncle's work is still in auction in London now. Wow. Thousands and thousands of dollars. Some of their trays. He made a cigar holder for Winston Churchill. Yeah. It's just something that I feel like I want to pass on to my children, and they can, kind of.
That's the beautiful thing about like family business that's been doing this for a long time. It's funny. My grandpa built houses. My father built houses. My grandpa did a lot of things, but he also built houses. My father built houses, and condominium, senior housing, apartments, subdivisions, things like that.
Sure.
And I never wanted anything to do with building anything, because when you work with family, it's just very annoying.
Of course.
Yeah, especially the oldest son of the oldest son. My dad was the oldest son of my grandfather. I was named after my grandfather.
Okay.
There's a lot of responsibility, being the oldest son and carrying the name of grandpa, And I did a lot of construction work with my dad growing up. And when you deal with, my dad's a great gentleman. He's a great man. But working as his son was just the worst thing in the world.
High pressure situation.
Extremely, can't complain, can't nothing, ridiculous.
I know the feeling. I know the feeling from the look.
That made you a gora, right? Or a gabra.
Gabara.
I think so.
Made you a gabara.
You work 20 years in the liquor store, you become a gabara.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. But somehow I found myself into the real estate. Developing things and rehabbing homes just out of the blue.
Right.
It just came out of necessity. Actually, I was trying to find a house to move into. And I couldn't find a house that I liked, so I found a house that I could work with, and I made it my own. And that's just kind of how it all started.
It's funny also.
It's a family business, though.
Maybe not directly, but my family, my grandpa had a bunch of farmland, and then also hotel and stores and restaurants. My dad has a liquor store with kind of food in there and stuff like that. But the farming part, it's kind of gone away, but now I'm getting into environmental law and everything, so it's still
it evolves. You kind of take what's been given to you and you evolve it. Like, for example,
this is crazy.
My family started off in silver work, and then eventually turned into gold work, and then now I'm transitioning that with my father into diamond work, and now we're doing a lot of custom diamond work and whatnot, and it just evolves generation by generation.
Is this your own work or is this something else?
Yeah, this is our own work.
This is your own work.
Yeah, all this is.
That's really nice.
Thank you. So
very nice and simple. It's not. It's not
Shapira.
Yeah, exactly.
Shapira
I can show you some of the pieces that I've actually made, man, and this is something that I've been developing for a while. I love how our culture really loves the Iraqi 21 karat pure gold.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's huge in our culture. It's very smart.
It's really
big
it's
and
a really
close,
yellow
right?
stuff, isn't it?
It's very deep yellow. Yeah, but it's very smart because whenever they would have money, they would just buy gold, buy gold, buy gold. Why? Because not only can you wear this gold, but if you ever need money, you can just sell the gold and get the value back, right? So it was huge in our culture that every time there was a wedding, every time there's a mishmekla, every time there's something, right? You gift gold because that gold accumulates over time.
Yeah.
And it's a way of wealth preservation.
Sure.
Right?
It holds value. I mean, if everything goes down the drain,
gold is
there.
Right. So I wanted to take that tradition but add a modern twist to it.
Yeah.
So I focus on extremely high detailed gold work, but in 21 karat gold, the Iraqi gold, which nobody has done yet, right?
Very cool.
So this is a Mother Mary piece that I made.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's extremely
nice.
high detailed.
Yeah, very nice.
Like Renaissance-esque.
It is Renaissance,
beautiful.
medieval,
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a Saint Michael piece that I made.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
Very detailed.
Very animated. We have to put this up.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
show people.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
alive.
you.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, so if you zoom into some of these details.
How long does it take for you to make something like this?
You want to know a story?
Yeah.
So this should usually take about a month and a half to 2 months to make.
Yeah. This particular piece that we saw.
Because
Saint
it's
Michael,
so high
right?
detailed. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a mother call me, okay, and she was just a reference from another client that I had, and she said, "Hey, my son is getting married, and I want to make a wedding gift for him, and we're doing a party for him and whatnot, and I really want to make something for him." And this is the reference that they gave me. This is the reference piece, and you're gonna see the difference. But she told me, "Yeah, I really want to make something for him. This is the idea that he had. It's this Saint Michael piece."
Oh, doesn't even hold a candle to the one that you made.
And this is the Saint Michael piece they showed me. And basically, I asked her, "Okay, how long do I have to make this for you?" She says, "Well, the party's in 9 days." And I said,
"So you're gonna give it to him after the party, then?"
Right. So I'm like, "Okay, so what do you want me to do with that? Because to make a piece is gonna take a minimum of 4 weeks. A minimum of 4 weeks. If I'm making a detailed piece, maybe just the CAD design is going to take 4 weeks."
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, because it's a lot of detailed work that goes into making this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So I said, "You know what? I'm going to challenge myself, and I can't make you any promises, but I'm going to kill myself to make this piece for you, just to show you that I can. Right? And I was like, do you mind if I put my own artistic taste into this, or do you guys want it exactly like the piece that you showed me? And she said, no, just do you.
Really?
Yeah. And this is what
I like that one better. The one you made.
This is the one you made.
Yeah. Look at the level of detail, even in the face.
Oh, he's got the scales there too. That's really interesting. And this is on top of a demon.
Yeah. It's much more intricate.
No, this doesn't even compare to the other one.
Oh, dude, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's objectively speaking. You know, anybody
yeah.
can look at that and say this is way different.
Yeah, like compared to this, which you can't even see his face.
Where's the other one that you showed us? Was the video?
This one right here. This is after
That's it with the diamonds.
Yeah, this is after with the stone.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't compare, man. This is it.
Yeah, that one is. That's the one you gave them, right?
Yeah. That's
the final. Yeah. Oh
what was their reaction when you? And then you finished this in how many days?
9 days.
9 days.
Yeah.
What was the woman's reaction when you?
She went crazy, to be honest with you. The son became a lifelong client and a friend.
Yeah.
And I made many other pieces for him since then.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you treat your clients as family and you go above and beyond what's expected, that's how you kind of make it.
I agree. I mean, that's how I run my law practice. Everybody is treated like a brother, you know, uncle, cousin, whatever it is.
Everybody's out there trying to make a buck. So what's going to separate?
It's all about relationships.
You know, for me, it's not about relationships. Making money off these pieces. I turned down many pieces because if they're not up to the standard that I want to present, I won't do it because I'm not chasing money.
Exactly.
I have a legacy to fulfill.
100%.
Right? Like my great-grandfather, great-uncle, they made jewelry for kings and queens.
Yeah.
You know, what do I look like just coming out with any piece?
Yeah,
just
exactly.
You know,
yeah.
Like that's disrespectful to their legacy. So I have a certain level of, you know, integrity and attention to detail that I have to uphold.
Absolutely.
And I feel like my clientele kind of appreciate that, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of these other jewelers kind of gravitated towards what I'm doing, because, I mean, I might not necessarily have the means to open a $5 million jewelry store like some of these guys.
Not yet, though.
Not yet, right? Because what happened when you leave in diaspora? Like my grandfather had a 10,000 square foot house in Baghdad, right? We had 3 jewelry stores in Baghdad. My father went to school with Saddam's sons. Like they went to a very prestigious private
I wonder
school.
if our dads went to school together.
Possibly, right? So
he kind of was going to the same school with one of those sons. Yeah.
When did your parents come here?
In '92.
Your parents both came. Were they married?
They're married, yeah.
Oh, they got married back home. They came here.
And they came here. Yeah.
Yeah, my parents have been here since '76 and '77.
Yeah. So
my dad came here in '84.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then but like his brothers and his dad didn't come till '92.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the diaspora, we kind of had to lose everything. My grandfather sold his 10,000 square foot house for like $20,000.
Oh wow!
And just fled, right? And didn't take any of his jewelry with him, and didn't do anything. So you went from being
that's crazy to leave all that behind, man.
My family, they just left it. They left it all there. And
they left everything behind. So we had to start over from scratch here, right? And so this is me starting over from scratch, but trying to uphold the legacy in any way that I can, and the way that
You've already got a leg up because you're familiar with how things work here to some degree. You're not necessarily starting from scratch. You have a pretty good lay of the land when it comes to
the foundation,
starting
the knowledge
anything.
is there.
Yeah.
Right. So if I have to start the business from the ground up, that's fine because the prestige is there, the level of detail is there, the connections are there, and again, that's why all these other jewelers have been gravitating towards me, and that's why I partnered up with David because like. David Walkler, he's a huge jeweler if you guys look him up, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't need to partner with me. You know,
True.
he has everything going for him.
But he's not Mandaean.
And he sees what I have to bring to the table, and he was just like, man,
that's good.
You know, let's do this.
Good
and
for
he became
you,
like my brother. You know?
What a great way to honor your ancestors and also continue a legacy of real greatness. Honestly, that's such a beautiful craft.
I appreciate that.
And I really enjoy your artwork.
I appreciate that. Man. Yeah. Hopefully, make something for you. So.
I think
so.
I got 2 new customers.
Maybe a lot more after this episode.
So, I really hope so. I think it would be cool if we kind of end this to see if you guys understand my dialect, and maybe I'll go through a couple words, and then we can kind of go from there. Cool.
Fantastic.
Sounds great. Yeah, go ahead.
Atun min nashet tura, nashet atur min neinawa hakari ibstana, ana min nashet nahra, abahathi min babilu min nasoraya min bet Yohanna masbana, ana lau nechraya atun nashwathi.
Can I see that?
Yes.
No, wait. This is all right.
I got a little bit of actually. To be honest with you.
Atun min Nashatora.
You are
Akhtu min Nashatora. You guys are from the mountains.
Yeah.
Nashid Atur min Ninwa wa Hakari Ibstana. Nashid Atur, the people of Ashur, are from Nineveh and Hakari. I don't know what Stana is.
Stana is strictly in our dialect. It means in the north.
Ana min Nashid Nahra. Want to take a stab at that one?
Say it again.
Ana min Nashid Nahra.
I am from. I am Nashid Nahra, from the river.
People of the river.
People of the river.
Nashid, yeah. Abahathi min Babel. So remember the
Abahathi min Babel. Your dad's from Babel. My dad.
Awahathi is even more than just father. Babawathi would be my father's. But Awahathi or Abahathi in his dialect means ancestors.
Ancestors, okay.
So you guys say Awahathi?
Awahathi.
Wow, it's the same rule.
Yeah, exactly.
I see, it's the same rule. Okay.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of this substitute age for this and that. Umin Nasoriya, Umin Yohanna. Nasoriya from the Nazareans and from John.
From John the Baptist. The house of John the Baptist, yeah.
Masbana, sorry, that was on the next line. Yeah, John the Baptist. Ana law nukhraya atun nashwathi.
I am not Nakhraya, an
outsider.
Foreigner. Foreigner. Yeah. I am. What was the last word?
Atun.
You are.
Nashwathi.
People.
Nashwathi. Not Nasha. Nashwathi.
Like deacons or priests?
Family.
Oh, family. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are my people, yeah.
Yeah.
My family, basically.
So this all together it says, you guys are from the mountains, the people of Ashur, from Nineveh and Hakkari, from the north. I'm from the people of the river. My ancestors are from Babel, and from the Nazareans, and from John the Baptist. I'm not an outsider. We are family.
Yes.
Or you are my family.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah,
and you absolutely are.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I really do.
This discussion has been so gratifying in a lot of ways.
Right,
you know? It's so enlightening and inspiring. And I'm sure we're going to think about a lot of things when we go out to dinner and hang out and think about maybe a follow-up episode depending on what our engagement
is on this one. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Just want to say thank you for making the time to join us.
I really appreciate it. Yeah.
And thank you, Alex, for being a great partner in this, man.
No,
it's been
great.
such a fun journey so far, and
No, a pleasure, man. Thanks for
much.
coming. This is a great,
really appreciate it. It's been great
conversation,
Absolutely,
and I commend you for your page and everything you're doing for your people. We're trying to do the same thing for us. And,
man, huge.
And obviously,
respect.
I think like Joe has said many times, we're the torchbearers of our generation.
We really are.
Working together and everything, especially if you want to keep culture alive, it's very important for us, for you, for all of us, and thanks again.
Absolutely.
It's a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Guys.
Thanks, brother.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap.